This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast.
Welcome to the Great Detectives Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you've got a comment, please feel free to email me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Be sure to, every month, cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net, and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/radiodetectives. Well, before we do get started with today's program, I do want to let you know, if you have got a business and you'd like to advertise on the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio, we're more than happy to work with you on that. The Great Detectives of Old Time Radio has an ever-growing audience. We're up to about 4,000 people who download each episode, with about 80% of those in the United States and about another 9% in Canada, and the rest throughout the world. So if you do business and want to have a nationwide reach, this is a great place to advertise. Or if you just want to be able to let people know that your business sponsors the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio, that can be a great opportunity as well. You can sponsor individual programs or the whole show. If you're interested, email box13@greatdetectives.net for more details. Well, we're going to get into today's episode of I Deal in Crime, the Abigail Murray case.
I Deal in Crime. The American Broadcasting Company presents I Deal in Crime, starring William Gargan as Ross Dolan. This is Ross Dolan speaking, about a woman named Abigail Murray. And if you can draw a picture from the name Abigail, your mental photography is probably correct. She's tall, skinny, with a prim mouth and a trimmer figure. She and 40 became acquainted quite some time back, and she dresses in solid black. I met Abigail Murray in quite the conventional manner. How do you do?
All right, young man, if you're ready to take your feet off your desk and sit up like a gentleman, I'm ready to discuss a business matter with you.
Oh, I'm so sorry, madam. I was so interested in your entrance that I forgot my manners.
Well, I can see that. You mind if I sit down?
No, not at all. Please do.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. You are Mr. Dolan?
Yep.
I'm Abigail Murray. I live in Norwalk, and I'm here in the city on a visit.
I see.
Also, I happen to be a school teacher.
I thought so, Miss Murray.
Please, call me Miss Abigail. I'm used to that. Been used to it for 30 years.
Okay, Miss Abigail it is.
Now, I want to employ you, Mr. Dolan. You're to be my escort. Are you willing to be that?
Well, that depends.
We're not going out to nightclubs and places of that nature. If that's what bothers you, I'm not the type.
No, I'm afraid you're not.
I merely want you to drive me across the city this evening. I'm visiting an old pupil of mine, and I dislike driving in the dark.
That's all, huh? Just drive you around tonight?
Certainly.
Miss Abigail, there must be more than that. If you just wanted to go across town, you could have taken a taxi cab or the streetcar.
Oh, no, I couldn't do that. All on account of the letter.
Letter?
Of course, the letter. The one I have in my purse.
Oh, Miss Abigail, you didn't tell me about the letter.
Oh, naturally not. I haven't come to it yet.
Well, this letter, what does it say?
It merely says that I'm going to be murdered tonight.
I took a long look at Abigail Murray, and believe me, she wasn't kidding. Also, in her prim New England masculine manner, she wasn't particularly worried about the threatening letter either. She handed it to me, and I read it. Abigail Murray, you should have stayed in Norwalk. Now it's too late, because tonight you are going to die. How did you get this letter, Miss Abigail?
It came to the hotel where I'm residing by special delivery.
But who could have sent this letter? Do you have any enemies?
Well, I've been a school teacher for 25 years. What do you think?
Well, I think the police station is a good spot for you. Come on.
Mr. Dolan, I wish you would dispel the notion that you can order me around like a simpleton. I've never gone to the police, and I'm not going to go now.
But, Miss Abigail...
Now, do you wish to escort me across town tonight, or shall I find someone else?
Okay, you win. I'll be your escort.
Fine. I'm staying at the plaza. Pick me up at 7.
Oh, no. If you want me to guard you, I'm starting in right now.
But I'm going to the beauty parlor. Having my hair waved.
Well, I'll be glad to come along, to make sure the curl isn't too permanent. Abigail Murray picked up her bag, stuffed a threatening letter in it, and left my office with me right behind. She really did have a date with a hairdresser, and I spent an interesting 3 hours in the outer room playing handies with a manicurist. Then we had dinner. I had a steak fried, while Miss Abigail stayed in New England and had hers boiled. At 8 that evening, we were driving along in her car.
You know, Mr. Dolan, this is the first time I've driven my car in the city at night.
I know, I can... Hey, look out! Hey, didn't you see that truck?
Of course I saw it, but I had the right of way.
Oh, fine.
After all, it was his duty to get out of my way. They always get out of my way in Norwalk.
Yeah, I don't blame them. By the way, just where are we going?
To visit an old pupil of mine at 327 Kendall. His name is Richard Way. He's been seriously ill. When he heard I was going to visit the city, he invited me to come and see him.
Would he be the person who sent you that letter?
Richard? Oh, hardly. He has the general courage of a field mouse. Well, we'll turn here and take a shortcut to the park. I enjoy parks at night.
I would never have believed it. Oh, Miss Abigail, slow down a little.
Why?
Slow down, that's all.
Well, but why?
There's a car in back of us.
You think there's something wrong?
Motion him to go around us. He's been trailing us the last few blocks.
Very well.
The guy had fired 3 shots at us. Abigail let go of the steering wheel, and our car made a sharp right turn into a convenient tree. By the time I untangled myself and got out, the would-be killer had disappeared in a cloud of blue smoke.
Those shots. They came right through the back window. He was shooting at us.
Not us, Miss Abigail. He was shooting at you. Now, let me see if the car is all right, and then you and I are going to the police. We should have done that in the first place.
I want to visit Richard Way.
Later. Now, let's see. He's banged up the front of the car.
Is everything all right, Mr. Dolan?
Yeah. You didn't do any damage. Just dented one fender of it. Uh-oh.
Now, what's wrong?
The tire, it's flat. Is there a spare in back?
Oh, yes, of course.
Well, hand me the keys, will you? We'll have to change that tire before we go any further.
Here they are.
Now, you just take it easy, and I'll have this beauty switched in a hurry.
Perhaps I could help, Mr. Dolan.
Okay, come along. Now, we'll just take this wrench, find the jack, and get back, Miss Abigail.
Why? What's wrong, Mr. Dolan? What's that bundle in there?
That's no bundle. That's the body of a man.
A man? Well, tell him to come out immediately.
I don't believe it would do any good. He's dead. Dead man was tucked into the back of the car like a sack of potatoes. We got a flashlight out of the glove compartment of Abigail Murray's car and looked him over. He'd been shot once. I could see that right away. Then Miss Abigail gave out with a startled exclamation.
Mr. Dolan, that's Richard.
Richard?
Richard Way, the man I was going to visit this evening.
We've got to get to a telephone right away, Miss Abigail. The police will have to be notified.
They'll ask a lot of questions?
Oh, murder always brings out the bump of curiosity on a policeman's head.
Oh. Of course, he could have committed suicide.
Oh, sure. This would look like suicide to anyone. The man shoots himself through the heart, then he climbs into the back of your car, pulls down the door, and locks it from the outside. Try again, Miss Abigail.
I've got it. That's how I was going to be murdered.
You mean they mistook Richard Way for you?
No. Don't you see? The person who wrote me that letter killed Richard Way. They put his body in my car. They knew it be found back there. I'd be accused of murder.
I don't know. That sounds like a long way around to arrange a murder frame. Well, let's lock this back and get out of here.
We're quite a ways into the park, Mr. Dolan. You think it's safe to walk?
It is, if we walk where there isn't a road. I don't think our friend would leave his car. Uh-oh.
A car. He's come back.
Out of sight, quick.
Is it the same man?
I don't know. I can't see good enough. Oh, come on, Miss Abigail. We've got nothing to worry about now.
But the man in that car, he'll see us.
I want him to see us. That car happens to be a Powell car.
All right, what are you doing back there? Is this your car?
That happens to be my car, officer.
Oh, it happens to be your car, eh? Don't you know it's against the law to park off this road?
We had a flat tire, officer.
Flat tire, eh? And you were looking for your spare back there, huh? In the bushes.
Officer, I'm Ross Dolan, the private investigator.
So what?
Somebody fired a gun at us while we were driving through here. You can see the bullet holes in the back window.
Go on.
I got out and opened the back to get at the spare tire. There's a dead man in there.
So you looked inside and found it. Did you say dead man?
Yeah.
I'll have a look in the back of your car. Come on, both of you.
But, Mr. Officer...
Come on, I said. Now unlock that turtle bag.
Okay.
You didn't touch him, take anything out of his pocket.
Naturally not. Do I look like the sort of person who would touch a dead man?
You look like the sort of person who's coming down to headquarters and have a little chat.
Headquarters? Why, this is disgraceful.
Miss Abigail, if you only let me...
One might think that Mr. Dolan and I were murderers.
Yeah, one might think you were.
Carter was one of those coldly efficient cops. He had me drive his police car to headquarters while Abigail Murray fumed, fussed, sputtered, and threatened. But it was like knocking down stone fences with a handful of sponges because Carter just sat back with no further comment. When we got to HQ, he herded us into a room for questioning.
I shall certainly telegraph the mayor of Norwalk. I've never before been treated in such degrading fashion.
Now, don't take it so hard, Miss Abbey. All we've got to do is prove that we didn't kill Richard Way, and they'll let us go.
But why do we have to prove it? I always thought a person, was presumed innocent until they were proved guilty. And so far, no one has proved anything.
I know.
And that officer, that Carter person.
Did I hear somebody mention my name?
You certainly did. And it was I.
I thought so. Now then, I want to ask you both some questions. After that, we'll decide what's to be done. You, Dolan, I looked over your identification.
Yeah?
What's your story?
Well, Miss Murray employed me to drive her across town. I took the job. We were driving through the park. Somebody took a shot at us and blew out a tire.
That's when we found Richard. I mean the body.
Miss Murray, I was talking to Mr. Dolan. When I finish with him, there are some matters you and I shall discuss.
I was just trying to help.
You'll get your chance.
Oh.
Now, you found the body, eh?
Yeah, when I opened the turtle back on the car to get at the spare tire.
Then what?
Then I started looking around for a cop.
In the bushes, off the road? What kind of a cop were you looking for?
All right, Carter, you're having your little fun, but you forget. Some guy with a gun had just fired 3 shots at us. Did you expect me to parade around like a big fat target?
Go on.
Well, when we heard your car approaching, we ducked. When I saw the PD label on the door, we came out, period.
Okay. Now, Miss Murray, you employed Dolan because you were afraid you'd received a threatening letter.
I substantiated that statement with proof, Mr. Carter. I gave you the letter I received.
So you did, and that's why I'm asking all these questions. You see, the dead man, Richard Way, had some notes in his own handwriting in his pocket.
Is there something unusual about that?
There is in this case, Miss Murray. Comparing the handwriting on the notes with the letter you received, we came to the conclusion that they were both the same.
What?
The man who threatened you by mail was the man you found dead in your car.
There was a lot of similar chit-chat which took place at police headquarters, but Carter finally let us go. He warned us not to leave town, which was a little ridiculous because I have an office here, and Miss Abigail told Carter she wouldn't miss the fun at this point for a carton of eggs. I took her back to the plaza and went home to my apartment, wondering what would happen next. An hour later, it turned out to be a blonde.
I'm Fay Murray. You're Ross Dolan.
And this is pretty late at night. What's on your mind, little lady?
Don't little lady me, Dolan. Where's my aunt, Abbey?
Abbey? Oh, you mean Miss Abigail.
Yes, I mean Miss Abigail. Where is she?
Well, the last I saw of her, she was digging a flannel nightgown out of her telescope bag down at the Plaza Hotel.
Get out of the way. I'm going to search your apartment.
You're going to what?
Move, I said.
Now, just a second. You can't come
Shut up.
busting in
Where
here.
is she?
Try my refrigerator. She's probably hiding behind an ice cube.
I'm not going to waste time on you, Dolan. I came here to find my aunt. And if you don't turn her up in 30 seconds, I'll phone the police.
I wish you would. And while you're calling, enter a complaint for me, too.
I know all about you. You're one of those ruthless private detectives. You're 1 degree removed from a crook. You take money under tables and under false pretenses.
And I'm going to turn you over my knee and spank you if you don't stop that. Now, what's this all about?
You mean you don't know where Aunt Abbey is?
The last time I saw her, she was ready to hit the sheets for a full complement of slumber. What gave you the idea she was here?
But I called her at the hotel. She didn't answer.
How'd you get up here?
A man answered Auntie's room. He said that she'd come up here, that you'd forced her to come with you.
Me? Force Miss Abigail to do anything she didn't want to? Why, that little old gal has a mind all of her own.
But then, who was the man in her hotel room?
That's what we're going to find out.
He's at the plaza.
I just told you that.
Oh. Dolan, are you sure you took her home?
I certainly am.
I wonder what could have happened to her.
Plaza Hotel?
Miss Abigail Murray, please.
One moment.
Did she answer?
Give her a chance, will you?
Well? Well?
No answer yet.
I'm sorry, sir, but Miss Murray is not in her room. You wish to leave a message?
Yeah. Have her call Ross Dolan when she comes in.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and one more thing. Did you see Miss Murray a little earlier this evening with a man?
A man? Let me think. Oh, yes. I saw her earlier. She came in with a big, beefy character wearing a wrinkled gray suit and a brown hat. Would you know him, sir?
I would. It happens to be me.
Oh, no, sir. You mean it was I?
It was me, and don't you forget it.
She's not there, is she?
No, and the clerk doesn't seem to remember her going out.
Well, in that case, Mr. Dolan, I'm sorry I bothered you. Good night.
Boy, she certainly was in a hurry. I wonder. Hey, Miss Murray, I want to ask you if... I never did find out what hit me, but from the size of the bump on my noggin when I woke up, I figured it was at least the Santa Fe Chief or a Constellation full speed ahead. The first thing that greeted my sight when I opened my eyes was a pair of black shoes. I let my eyes travel upwards. All right, Dolan, what did you do with her? Do with whom? Abigail Murray. She's disappeared. That's what I like about you, Carter. You always bring out the news when it's a day old. Get on your feet. I want to ask you some questions. You've just got no mercy at all. Hey, let me shake the ache out of my gray matter. What happened up here? Somebody slug you? No. I just butted my head against the wall. I do it all the time. Now then, what happened to Abigail Murray? You know as much as I do, Carter. You know about the car disappearing? Her car? Well, you took care of that. I sent the wagon out to pick up the body. They brought in the body, and the garage man sent a truck out after the car. When he got there, it was gone. Well, you got me. This is the first I've heard about that. I called Miss Murray at her hotel. She had gone. No one had seen her leave. Now, Dolan, just what goes on around here? What's the gag? I told you I don't know. I called her, too. Her niece was up here looking for her. Her what? Her niece, Fay Murray. Niece, huh? What's wrong with that? We checked on Abigail Murray at Norwalk, and she hasn't got a father, a mother, no brothers, and no sisters. So obviously she couldn't have a niece. So what are you trying to give me? A little information on what happened after I took Abigail Murray to the Plaza Hotel. I came home, was here an hour when her niece showed up. I'm trying to tell you Abigail Murray doesn't have a niece. So the girl just said she was her niece. Give me a description on the way downtown. I'll get out a call on him. On the way downtown? Where am I going now? I'm going to the morgue. I want you to take another look at Richard Way. It couldn't wait till morning, huh? I want you to see that body before it disappears, too. I began to think about a number of things regarding Abigail Murray. Also, Fay Murray, the niece who wasn't a niece. Who was she, and why was she looking for Miss Abigail? Then we pulled up in front of the morgue, got out of the car, and went in. Did you take anything out of the dead man's pocket, Dolan? The first thing I learned as a private detective was to leave that strictly alone. Why? I just wondered. In here. Say, who's the guy over there? You'll find out in due time. Okay, take a look. Is this the man you found in the back of your car? Yep. Sure? You can make a positive identification? Yep. I remember where the bullet struck. Also his face. Uh-huh. Mr. Way, would you mind stepping this way, please? Yes. I must be seeing double. This can't be. Well, Dolan, what do you say now? This guy must be the dead man's twin brother. I've never seen such a resemblance before. That's right. This is John Way, Richard Way's twin brother, Ross Dolan. Now then, Mr. Way, mind telling me again, when did you see your brother last? About 7 o'clock. He said he had an errand and left the apartment. Did he mention his appointment with Miss Murray? No, he didn't. You have no idea how your brother's body got in the back of Miss Murray's car? None whatsoever. Okay, thanks, Mr. Way. We'll call you if we need you. Thank you. Say, you want any more from me, Carter? No, just be around where I can find you. Well, I'll be home. Hey, by the way, have you checked the bullet holes in Miss Murray's car to see if they match with the bullet in the dead man? I'd love to, but we haven't found the car yet. Say, when you do, Carter, I've got a little bet for you. Yes? I'll give you 2 to 1, they match. I walked out of the morgue onto the street, leaving a very puzzled Carter standing there, but no more puzzled than a private eye named Dolan. The street was dark and forbidding. The lights in that district were black with age, and the buildings were dark and gloomy. I wondered how one twin felt when the other one died, because I'd read stories about the invisible threads which bound such people together. Then I felt a hand on my arm.
Dolan, wait.
Well, Miss Fay Murray, or have you switched to another name by this time?
Dolan, I've come to ask a favor. A big one.
And I'm going to ask one of you. Just turn around and walk back into that morgue. There's a cop there named Carter who'd just love to meet you.
Please, Dolan, listen to me. Forget all about Miss Abigail.
You mean your aunt? Or aren't you the niece who isn't the niece?
I can't explain anything to you right now, but if you'll promise me something, I'll tell you the whole story in a few days.
Well, that's so kind of you. I get shot at, hit over the head, dragged around by the police, lose sight of my client, and you want me to wait. What for?
This is a matter of life and death, Dolan. I'm asking you to forget about everything that's happened.
So?
Because if you don't, somebody else will die, too.
Fay Murray, if she was Fay Murray, had one great trick. She could disappear like nothing I've ever seen before. By the time I opened my mouth to ask another question, she'd melted away like a bonbon on a hot rock. I went down towards the lighted corner, and 10 minutes later was in a taxicab. I retraced the same route I'd taken earlier with Miss Abigail, and when the cab got to the spot where the shooting had occurred, I got out and looked around. But there was nothing to look at, so I got going again. I remembered Miss Abigail mentioning the address of Richard Way. It was 327 Kendall, on the other side of the park. I got out a block away. I stood there until the blinking red taillight had disappeared around the corner. I wanted to be sure no one had followed me. Then I made my way inside the apartment building and got the apartment number off the mailbox. I didn't care to announce my presence, so I took it very easy going up the stairs. The apartment building was as quiet as the grave, and the word grave reminded me of the dead man lying down in the morgue. When I got to the door of the apartment I was looking for, I could hear voices. John Way and Fay Murray, but they were too low to make out. So I looked for another method of getting in on the know. The apartment was one of those 2-bedroom and bath affairs with a separate door for the kitchen. I moved inside through the kitchen. The 2 voices grew in intensity as I moved towards the living room door.
John, you promised.
Of course I did, my dear. Of course I did. It was to get you back here.
But you told me if I got rid of Dolan, you'd take care of everything. You'd let Miss Abigail go.
Oh, and so I am, my dear. I am going to take care of everything.
You know, I could go to the police. I could tell them the whole story.
In your present condition, I hardly think so.
In that case, I'll scream. I'll yell as loud as...
You little fool, you make one sound or I'll kill you right now.
I took a chance and moved closer. What I saw surprised me, because the girl was tied in her chair, hand and foot, while John Way held his hand over her mouth. I started inside, but he was quicker than I was.
Put up your hand. One move and I shoot.
Dolan, I told you.
You, come here.
Sure.
Oh, you just couldn't take Faye's advice. You had to come around here snooping, huh?
I'm beginning to figure a lot of things, Way. You killed your brother.
Well, you're very observing.
Where's Abigail Murray? What'd you do with her?
Oh? You want to know where Abigail Murray is, do you?
Yeah.
You know, I think I'll arrange for you to find out. I'll go a step further. I'll arrange for you to go with her.
Well, she's still alive then, huh? Where is she?
In the turtle back of a car. I put her there.
Hey, what's the matter with this guy, Faye? Is he off his trunk?
Say as you say I'm insane, I'll kill you right here.
So, that's the way it is.
You think I'm insane, too, don't you? Perhaps I am. All my life, it's rich at this, rich at that, rich at the other thing. I killed it.
Now, you're in pretty deep, mister. Better hand me that gun.
Oh, you think you're sly, don't you? You think I'm going to just hand it over like that? But I'm not.
No?
No, I've got it all set up. You, Faye, and Abigail are taking a little drive with me. Only I'm coming back alone.
You stole the car, huh? Before the cops came back.
Of course. That was very clever of me, don't you think?
You answered the phone in Abigail Murray's room when Faye called her, didn't you?
Of course. I dropped in to see my old teacher. We were such pals, you know. She always gave me such good marks.
You're quite a clever guy. How'd you get her out of the hotel?
Down the back way, servants' entrance. Quite deserted. I arranged that, too.
Then you came over and conked me on the head, huh?
Yes, after I locked up Miss Abigail in the car.
Well, you get around, Mr. Way.
You see, I followed Faye. I thought she might do something silly like imploring you. But I prevailed upon her to forget it. Didn't I, my dear?
You lied to me. You told me that if I got rid of Dolan, you'd let Miss Abigail go free.
Oh, no. No. What I said was that I'd see that Miss Abigail was free. And she shall be. Because one is free when one is dead.
What are you going to do?
Drive the car in the river. They'll never find it buried in the mud.
They won't find us either.
Naturally not. You'll be in the car from now on. You, say, and Abigail.
And what happens when you try to get me out of here? I could start a ruckus.
I have that plan, too. Turn around.
What for?
I said turn.
Okay. Now what happens?
I'm going to hit you over the head. Not too hard, but just hard enough to keep you quiet for a while, I guess.
No, drop it! You fool!
Think you can make me?
I think I can. I was lucky enough to catch John Way with a fast chop to the chin. Then I phoned Carter, who came out with a squad and took John Way down to the clink. At his trial, a group of doctors testified that he was violently and incurably insane. Later, I had a meeting with Miss Abigail and, of course, Faye at the Flamingo.
My, Mr. Dolan. When I asked you to drive with me that night, I never dreamed that we would become involved in such an adventure.
Well, neither did I.
What puzzles me is, how did John get hold of my car long enough to put Richard's body in it?
Well, he told the doctors at the trial that he saw you take it into a filling station to have it greased. He represented himself as your brother, took the car, put his brother's body in it, and returned it to your hotel.
Think of that.
Why did he hate you so much, Miss Abbey? And why hate his brother?
You know, I can't understand that. Richard was gay, a good student, well-liked. John was exactly the opposite. Moody, a bad student with violent dislikes.
It probably gnawed away at his mind until he made it up to get rid of the two people he hated.
I think you're right.
Well, now, let's talk about Faye here. Why the pose as Miss Abigail's niece?
Say, you're merely an old friend. Why did you say you were my niece? Only because I thought it might carry weight with Mr. Dolan. Only I was weighed and found wanting.
Oh, purely in a business sense. Try me on the social time sometime.
Tonight?
The sooner, the better.
And, of course, I'm coming along, too. You know, I've never been to a nightclub. I've never even done the rumba.
Now, take it easy, Miss Abbey. How do you know you like it?
Oh, I shall. After all, a girl my age can get into trouble, too.
Yeah, you can say that again. Good night, folks. Don't forget to listen again next week, same time, over most of these ABC stations, when you will hear William Gargan say,
I deal in crime.
I Deal in Crime, starring William Gargan as Ross Dolan, is a special presentation of the American Broadcasting Company. It is written and directed by Ted Hediger. Special music is arranged and conducted by Rudy Schrager. Now, here's a special program note. International intrigue. That's what David Harding finds himself involved in on tomorrow's thrilling counter-spy case. Don't miss David Harding Counter-Spy tomorrow afternoon over the same ABC station.
Welcome back. This was another nice little case, and I have to say that a lot of the old-time radio sites tend to give I Deal in Crime not a whole lot of credit, but it actually was a pretty fun series here. Not quite as good as Barry Craig, which we're going to start on next week, but still pretty good lip from Ross Dolan here. I cracked up listening to him talking to the police detective in his apartment, as well as at Miss Murray's suggestion of the body in the back in the trunk of the car being a suicide. Well, we now turn to listener feedback and comments. Murph comments regarding I Deal in Crime. Sketch Henderson did the music for I Deal in Crime. He is well known to many of us, at least to many of us of a certain age. Before Jay Leno was, of course, Johnny Carson, whose band leader for most of his run was Doc Severinsen. But before Doc was the funny and very talented Sketch Henderson. He was a talented character in his own right. Thought it was worth a mention. Well, certainly was. Thanks so much, Murph. We also a question from Facebook. Tim asked, when are you going to get to the Saint? And are you planning on doing the Shadow? Well, the Saint is still quite a few years off. Love the series. I'll enjoy doing it. But I've got a few things I want to work together, and I think you'll like the way we end up running it. In terms of the Shadow, I've kind of addressed it before. The Shadow it's got some elements of the detective show and even a few episodes that I've heard that seem like a traditional detective show. But it's really not quite the same. So I don't have it on my list of programs to do. And The Shadow has been one that has had the most, or I should say the highest level of what I call dubious copyright claims that I don't tend to believe are valid, but also I'd rather not deal with. So The Shadow's not on our list of shows to do at this point. You can always check out which shows we're going to do if you go to greatdetectives.net. And just hit the Control F button and search for the big list. And that will bring up our page listing all the shows we're planning on doing. Some that I'm going to want to listen to more to get a feel for if I think they work good for the show. And then some I'm just not going to do. Well, thanks for the question, Tim. And then Phil in London writes, love your podcast. Keep them coming. Thanks for all the great work that you do, from Phil in London, England. Well, thanks so much, Phil. And now we have a couple quick programming notes. First of all, if you have our app or the premium site, we've got a special bonus for you. Another show we have decided to do, The Private Files of Rex Saunders, starring Rex Harrison. We've added to the list of shows that we want to eventually do. It's a pretty well-done, interesting and charming detective show. I like it quite a bit. So that is now on our list, and we will, as is our custom, offer you a sample episode, unhosted, of course, to give you a feel as to what it's like. Also, we've mentioned Martin Caine. You'll be given the opportunity to see Martin Caine as this month's video theater is going to be an episode of the TV show Martin Caine with William Gargan, which we will play next Sunday, the day before we start into Barry Craig Confidential Investigator. But that will do it for us for now. We will be back tomorrow with Rogues Gallery, and then join us next week for our first adventure with Barry Craig Confidential Investigator. All right, well, we will actually forego our sponsor announcement, but I do urge you to listen after the program for a very special public service announcement. But that said, let's get into today's episode of Rogues Gallery. This is the Mystery Playhouse version of Murder in Drawing Room A.
Hello, creeps. This is a very tired T4Y on the Mystery Playhouse. Tonight's story will be told by Dick Powell, who plays Richard Rogue now, in another graphic adventure from Rogues Gallery.
When I got on this rattler for my trip to Central City, I was not exactly a joy boy. I hate riding on trains. But a couple of hours later, I'm a happy chappy. Because who do I run across in the lounge car is a little ambition of mine by the name of Betty Callahan, a newspaper woman who is cheating the movies. She's a pocket-sized brunette with cornflower blue eyes and a complexion which wouldn't come off on the shoulder of my blue gabardine suit. I rescued her from the wolves in Uncle Sam's clothing, who were making life too interesting for her in the club car, and we retired to my compartment to talk about old times.
Nice little place you have here, Richard.
A guy can get pretty lonesome in a place like this, you know, Betty.
Get that gleam out of your eye, Richard. I'm perfectly comfortable right where I am.
Oh, all right, all right. I just thought maybe you'd like to sit here with me and look out of the window.
You're so thoughtful. You haven't even told me where you're going. Did things finally get too hot for you at home?
Please. I'm going to Central City, baby, for the same reason you are. The Charlie Miller trial.
Don't tell me you've learned to write.
Oh, very funny. I'm an expert witness, and I've got a briefcase full of research here. That's going to make the DA very happy. Come a little closer.
Oh, all right. What do you think? Is Charlie going to get the works?
Oh, let's not talk about Charlie. Let's talk about me.
Don't you ever get tired of that subject?
No, it fascinates me. Come on, what are you sitting clear over there for? You like it here.
Why?
Did your mother ever tell you anything?
About fellows like you? Plenty.
Why don't you drop that front page character, Angel? We've known each other for a long time.
Stop pulling.
Well, I was just trying to...
Well, stop trying.
How can you be so mean to me? Ever since the first time I saw you, Betty, I've been stuck on you. No kidding.
Oh, Richard. Did anybody ever believe that line?
Once in a while. You know, something's going to happen to you in just a minute, baby.
Will I like it?
Let's find out.
Quiet.
Oh, brother. What's the idea, lady? This is a private compartment.
Please, I'm sorry to intrude. Who is this girl, Richard?
I never saw her before. Who are you?
I had to come in here. My life is in danger.
Well, offhand, lady, I don't think you improved your situation any breaking in here when you did.
Oh, why does everything have to happen to me? Why don't you buy a ticket, Latin type, and then you wouldn't have to play hide and seek with the conductor?
I had to come in here. I'm hiding. There's a man on this train who has designs on my life. Yes, what Bernhardt could have done with that line. You don't believe me?
That's right. Now scram.
Oh, don't answer it. Please. It's him.
The guy with the design? I want to take a gander, Jim.
Oh, no. I'll answer it myself.
I want to talk with you a minute, Diane.
It's impossible, Fritz. There's nothing more to say.
I think maybe you'd better. I know where you're going, Diane, and I know what you've got. Now, do you want to come out here?
All right. I'll be with you in a minute.
I'll be waiting.
Want me to take care of that punk for you?
You stay out of this, Richard. Please. Will you keep this briefcase for me? Don't let anyone touch it. Please.
Well, next time, why don't you get a drawing room with a revolving door, Richard?
Oh, shut up. You know, I'm kind of worried about that girl. I'm going to feel pretty silly if she comes up dead. For the next 2 minutes, I worried about Diane and the man who had designs on her life. But I'm a romanticist at heart. So I spent the next 58 minutes trying to spellbind Betty into seeing things my way. But she wasn't looking. At the end of an hour, my chances were still about on the ratio of Little Rock Junior High against Notre Dame. So I gave up.
Well, it's been an hour since our visitor checked out. What do you think, Richard?
The dame's either as goofy as a cub outfielder or she's really in a jam.
If you're pulling me, I'll put my X on the first stanza. Let's take a look in that briefcase she left behind.
Hey, wait a minute, honey. That's my briefcase.
Oh, I'm sorry. Don't get huffy, Richard. Those two briefcases are practically identical.
Yeah, I guess they aren't that. Well, give me mine. I'm going to put it up here on the rack. Hey, what is this?
Pipe down, pretty boy.
Turn the lights back on, Richard.
Shut up, lady. All right, give me that briefcase, pretty boy.
Get that flashlight out of my eyes.
Keep your hands where they are.
Give me that flashlight.
Sorry, lady, but you asked for it. Now, pretty boy, give me that bag.
Hey, what's the gimmick? What are you pulling that emergency cord for?
I don't want to have to shoot you. Keep your hands out of your coat. So long, pretty boy.
As he pulled the cord, I could see the gleam of a gun in this character's fist, and I didn't want any samples of his marksmanship. But I could hear Betty groaning on the floor at my feet, and all of a sudden I felt that I had to get him before he jumped out of that window he'd knocked out with the butt of his pistol. I made a dive for him, expecting to stop a little lead. When I got where he'd been, he wasn't there. He was behind me. I knew that when I heard the flashlight whizzing through the air. It connected expertly right behind my ear. And there I went again into the land of Nod, which is practically my home away from home. Everything was very quiet for a while, and I slept peacefully.
Come on, Rogie. Come on. Get up, Rogue. Get up.
Huh?
Snap out of it. Betty's been hurt.
Betty?
The man got away. You've got to get up.
Oh, I can't. Oh, my head.
Get up. Get up. Wake up. Get up.
What's that noise?
It's at the door. Someone wants in.
Oh, they'll go away.
Snap out of it, Rogie. Let him in. Betty's been hurt.
What happened? I can't remember.
Remember the man? Remember the girl? He came back and...
Yeah. Oh, cut it out. Stop that pounding. Ooh, my head.
You're in a jam, Rogie. Betty's been hurt. Wake up. Get up.
I can't. What's that pounding? Pounding. Cut it out. Stop it, do you hear? Stop it. Okay. Betty. Oh, Betty, you poor kid.
Hello there. Hello.
I'm coming. Just keep your shirt on.
I demand an explanation of what's been going on in here.
Come on. Help me bring this girl out of it.
The window broken. Do you know what that does to the air conditioning in this car?
Well, a man got out of that window while the train was stopped.
Who pulled the emergency cord?
This guy. He came in here waving a gun around, took a briefcase that some dame had left here, stopped the train, and knocked our brains out. I just came to, and he's gone. So let's face it, conductor, he must have jumped out the window.
Yes. And what happened to the young lady who left the briefcase here in your compartment?
I don't know.
Who was she?
I never saw her before. Oh, you okay, baby?
Oh, sure. It takes a bump like that to clear up my mind. Who was that fellow?
I don't know.
I'm holding you responsible for the damage that's been done to this compartment. What's your name?
The name's Richard Rogue. Now get out of here. I'll give you some more things to hold me responsible for. Personal things.
I'm the conductor on this train, and I'm not...
Okay. We'll still be on your train when you pull into Central City. Goodbye now.
Now, everything's all right, folks. Just get back to your seats, please. We're going ahead immediately. Please return to your seats.
I've heard you were dynamic when you got started, Richard.
Yeah, look. That daffy dame that came charging in here wasn't kidding. That briefcase of hers is full of dynamite.
Was, you mean? It's gone. Out the window.
Oh, no, it isn't. That window jumper took mine, remember? I had it in my hand, ready to put it up on the luggage rack when he came in. Give me hers. It's right over there behind you.
Oh, sure. It's locked.
I want to know what's in it, don't you?
I love life. I just wish I'd never seen it.
Well, comb the hair over that lump on your head, baby. We're going to find and confer with the young lady who spark-plugged this carnival of mayhem.
Okay, I'm in. I owe that brunette a little something. Go talk to her.
My head had that familiar old feeling of having been washed in a washing machine, and I was feeling anything but cute as we wandered down the aisle, asking porters if they'd seen a big brunette wearing a blue pinstripe suit and a hat with cherries on it. That was Diane, you know. Finally, in car 73, the porter recognized the description and told us that the lady was in drawing room A. Naturally, the conductor came along about this time. His glares bounced off that haze of pain that surrounded me like ricocheting bullets. He went with us, under protest, to drawing room A. Oh, no answer.
He isn't in. Why don't you look in the club car?
I did. Knock again.
Why don't you try the door, Richard?
Okay. Oh, it's open. Conductor, mind if we go in and look around?
What right have you to enter the stateroom of a strange woman?
She entered his.
You sue me if you want to, but I'm going in there and take a look around. Nobody home, I guess.
Well, I hope you're satisfied. Tearing up the train, walking into other people's drawing rooms.
Look, mister, I'm trying to help you. I've been all over this train. This dame has to be someplace.
All right. She's not here. And I can't stand around all night.
Look, over there, under the berth.
I don't see anything.
You don't? Come here, conductor. What do you think that is? Red ink?
Why?
That's blood. Oh, wait, I'll pull these blankets back.
Oh, I'm getting out of here.
Are you convinced now that something's happened to that girl?
Yes, I suppose so.
Well, she must be in here someplace. Open the door to that wardrobe.
Oh, Richard.
Steady, Betty.
Here. Help me move her up on the berth.
No. Leave her right where she is. The cops won't want to move.
Oh, that knife in her throat.
She's dead.
Yes, she was dead. And all we knew about her was that her name was Diane, and that I had the briefcase which must contain the reason for her murder. A pleasant thought. I took one more look at the dead girl, shuddered, and pulled Betty out of that room. I wondered what was going to happen next, and who was going to be the main attraction. I must have been born under a police star. No matter what I start out to do, I end up in more trouble than a jitterbug at a square dance. Me? I start out to be an expert witness, and I wind up in the sheriff's office in Central City trying to explain a murder. Betty was enjoying every minute of this comedy of terrors, being a news hawk. She was jumping with enthusiasm and theories. The sheriff was jumping with importance, and I was just jumping. I don't like murder unless there's a profit in it for me.
Sit down, Rogue. You shouldn't be so nervous.
Well, we should be getting a report of that murdered woman, shouldn't we, Sheriff? We're not going to get any place until we find out who she was.
Oh, my men are working on it, Rogue. Now, just take it easy. We know our business here in Central City.
Uh-huh. Well, it's your business. It isn't mine. So if you don't mind, I think I'll shove off. I've got a little business to take care of myself.
Just a moment. I'll,
But we got a positive identification on that lady who was stabbed on the train, Sheriff. And who do you think she was?
Well, who was she? Get to it, Hennessy.
She was Diane Miller, wife of Charlie Miller, who was on trial for murdering Big Joel and Bertie.
No kidding.
You can go, Hennessy. Sheriff Mills. Yeah? All over the place, huh? Great work, Sergeant. Okay. I'll have a pick out on him in 10 minutes. Thanks.
Well, what's the good news? Have anything to do with the case?
Well, Rogue, the man who stabbed Mrs. Charlie Miller was Flip Stone, Miller's best friend, and his first lieutenant in the slot machine racket. His fingerprints were all over the knife. How do you like that?
I don't like it. Doesn't make sense yet.
Richard, I'm going to go call this into my city desk. Will you meet me at the hotel and bring me up to date on what has happened?
Sure, I'll take care of it, baby. You run along, keep your readers informed.
You might as well go along with her, Rogue. We don't need your help to solve this case. We're perfectly capable of taking care of it ourselves.
Oh, swell. Lots of luck.
I've heard all about you, Rogue. Just keep your hands in your pockets while you're in Central City. We don't like smart private detectives very well. Remember that.
I was all set to try and help the guy until he said that. I don't approve of people going around sticking knives through other people, and I'm willing to throw in my nickel's worth to see that they're discouraged. Then this politician with muscles running up to the part in his hair gets tough with me. Oh, well, he probably had run across some wrong guys in his time. Anyway, Betty and I lammed back to the Hotel Splendide. We went up to my room because we wanted to talk. She called in her story to her paper, and I sat in the window and talked the deal over with myself. She finished her phone call.
I really walked into a scoop this time. The city editor's having hallucinations. He even promised me a raise.
Throw the bolt in that door, will you?
Why?
Oh, don't be so conceited. I want to take a look in this briefcase all the excitement is about.
Of course, you know you can get put away in the pokey for a long time for withholding evidence.
You're the worrying type, aren't you?
Why do you suppose Flipstone rubbed out his boss's better half?
Maybe she asked idiotic questions while he was trying to open a briefcase.
You know it's locked.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ruin the lock with my knife. Too bad.
That's breaking and entering or something, isn't it?
Illegal entry.
Oh, that'll add 20 years to your sentence.
I'll still be a young man when I get out. Oh, come on. Come on, I'm not going to be browbeaten by a lock. Hey, $100 bills. Millions of them. Take a gander at that, Betty.
Money!
Oh, you catch on quick. No wonder Flipstone was so anxious to get his hot little pink fist on this letter. You count them, will you?
I'd love to.
There's some letters in here I want to be impolite about.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1. Richard, there must be $50,000 here.
Baby, this is the works. These letters explain a lot of things.
I'm counting. Wait a minute. 81, 82, 83, 84. Don't bother me. I never saw this much money before.
No? Well, I know now why Flipstone put the kiss of death on the lovely Diane. He had to keep these letters and that money from being delivered. He didn't want Charlie Miller to beat that rap.
4, 5, 6, 7. I'm through 6,000s already, and I haven't even made a hole in the pile.
Oh, the guy who wrote these letters was a character.
5, 6, 7, 8, 7.
Give me the sheriff's office, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Thank you.
8,000. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9,000. Oh, I wonder what a nice yacht would cost me.
Chicken, if that dough was yours, you'd be Mrs. Richard Rogue tonight.
Oh, would I? 6, 7, 8, 9.
Hello,
10,000.
sheriff's office. Let me talk to Sheriff Mills. Richard Rogue calling. Thanks.
Gracious. 7, 8, 9, 11,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, hello,
7,
Sheriff.
8,
This is
9,
Richard Rogue.
12,000.
Yeah. Come down to 7:30 at the Hotel Splendid right away, will you? Well, don't ask so many questions. I'm going to make you a big man. I want you to help me plan a surprise party. Right. Now, hurry. Hey, that's a lot of letters you got there, Betty, darling. Flipstone really grabbed a handful of disappointment when he bailed out with that mice hatchet by mistake. There wasn't nearly that much money in mine.
Who could that be?
I don't know. Look, I'll get over behind the door. You open it, and we'll look our company over before we put this artillery away.
All right. I don't like guns.
They come in handy sometimes. Okay.
Put 'em up, lady. I'm coming in.
You can't come in here.
Shut up. Just keep backing up. I want that dough. You switched bags on me.
I didn't do it.
Where's Rogue? Checked every hotel register in town looking for him. Where is he? I want to slap him around a little bit for...
Oh, Richard, why did you wait so long?
I administered that pistol anesthesia with masterful precision. Flip was going to have a long ride on the dream train. Betty and I took a sheet off the bed, tore it into strips, and tied Flip up like traffic at Hollywood and Vine. Then we looked around for some place to hide him. We finally picked out a spot that any old maid would have thought of immediately. We slipped him under one of the twin beds. Then we finished counting the money. $25,000. Oh, it looked beautiful there. But I had things to do. I called the sheriff. He hadn't left the jail yet. So I went down there to talk with him. And while I was there, I had a chat with Charlie Miller, a very satisfactory chat. Then the sheriff and I went back to the hotel. Betty made a phone call, and we waited for company. The sheriff and I squeezed into a closet when the knock came at the door.
Who is it?
You just called and invited me down.
Okay. Come in.
Thanks. Now, let's get this over with, Mrs. Miller. I want to get out of here.
Don't be in such a hurry. How do I know you're on the level?
You have the money with you?
Yes. I'll give it to you after you sign this little document.
What is it?
I'll read it to you.
All right.
I, Louis Tobin, a member of the jury in the trial of Charles Miller for the murder of Big Joe Lamberti, do hereby acknowledge the receipt of $25,000 from the hand of Mrs. Charles Miller, for which I agree to hold out against the conviction of Charles Miller and to find him not guilty. I also agree to use my best influence to make the other jurors agree to a not guilty verdict. And that's where you sign, Mr. Tobin.
Oh, you know I can't sign a thing like that.
Now, look, I've got 25 grand in Hudrins ready for you. You get it when you sign your name. Right there.
No,
If you keep
can't.
your word and my husband gets a hung jury or an acquittal, this receipt will be torn up. If you don't, I'll give it to the newspapers. Sign it.
Okay. Okay, I'll sign it.
Here's a pen.
Okay. There, I'll just hang on to this until you give me the money.
Here you are. $250 $100 bills. There we are. You want to count it?
No, I just want to get out of here, that's all. Hey,
Don't move, Tobin. The sheriff and I both have you covered.
You double-crossed me. I was just trying to...
Tobin. I'll shake him down, Sheriff. He's got $25,000 on him that you marked yourself.
You haven't got a thing on me. I was just
Take your
trying...
hands out here.
Well,
Miss Callahan, could I have that confession?
Oh, sure, if you'll let me have it back for a photostat later.
Okay, it'll be yours, exclusive. And now I'm going to take this man down and lock him up where he belongs.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Very practical. Oh, here, Sheriff. You better take this money with you. I just spend everything I get my hands on.
Oh, yes, of course. Thank you, Rogue.
You better count it.
Later.
No, Sheriff, you better count it now.
I can't take the time now, Rogue. If there's any money missing, I'll be back. And there had better not be any money missing.
I had news for the sheriff, but he was so impressed with this pinch that he couldn't see me. Oh, well, I knew he'd be back. You see, I'm a practical guy. I had palmed and pocketed $5,000 out of that wad of dough I took off Tobin. I showed it to Betty, and she was horrified, but I knew what I was doing. So I just sat there and waited for the door to take a beating. And it did. Who is it?
It's the sheriff. Let me in, Rogue.
Why, Sheriff, you're all red in the face. At your age?
I knew you were a crook the first time I set eyes on you, Rogue.
You probably studied psychology at Barber College. That's what makes you so smart.
There was only $20,000 in that briefcase when I counted the money at the jail. And I had 4 honest men as witnesses.
Well, bless your heart.
Where's that other $5,000, Rogue?
In my pocket, Sheriff. And that's where it's going to stay.
That's larceny, and you're under arrest.
Now, is that silly? Look, Sheriff.
Oh, please, Richard, tell him. Don't needle him anymore.
Well, Sheriff, you remember when I went in the cell to see Charlie Miller?
What's that got to do with the missing funds?
Well, he posted a $5,000 reward for the killer of his wife with you, didn't he?
Oh, yes, I suppose he did.
You suppose? You know he did. Well, if you look under the bed there in the bedroom, you'll find Flip Stone, the guy who murdered Diane Miller. It was very simple. I just collected my reward in advance, that's all. My friend the sheriff was a little upset for a while, but he calmed down when Betty brought in a photographer to take his picture for the papers. Isn't it funny what some people will do to get their pictures in the papers? I had to practically wrestle him to keep him out profiling me, the big ham. Well, I split the reward with Betty, of course. Well, I didn't just exactly split it with her. I gave her $2,000. But she didn't want to take anything. Isn't that just like a woman, though? Or is it?
We're a little late, folks. This is T4Y. Good night. Sleep tight. This is the Armed Forces Radio Service.
Welcome back. Well, I have to say, I'm not quite feeling the Armed Forces Radio Service's post-war replacement for Sergeant X and Peter Lorre, who did the Mystery Playhouse announcing during World War II. But other than that, the mystery itself was a lot of fun with quite a few twists and turns along the way. And continues the sort of pattern when Rogue gets some money. A lot of times on the detective shows, our detective hero is never allowed to really cash in big because it would ruin their status of being kind of paycheck to paycheck. That was one of the descriptions of the hard-boiled private eye that Raymond Chandler put out. He said that the hard-boiled private eye was not wealthy, didn't have a lot of money, or else he wouldn't be a detective. So you've got to keep your detectives, if not in poverty, but at least kind of just barely scraping by. So you don't usually see them. Usually something happens where they lose out on the money. Well, in Rogue's gallery, it's not necessarily the case. Rogue may end up getting some money, but he is quickly parted with it, so he can return to the state of ideal private detective poverty. Got a comment from Podcast Alley, and says, the show I follow most loyally, and for good reason. The host is discerning and committed to bringing his audience the best. He also plays the shows from the first episode onward, which, surprisingly, isn't a very common practice for radio show podcasts. Thanks so much and for the comment. And as I mentioned a few times before, that was part of the reason why I started the Great Detectives podcast, because, there are other detective show podcasts, which certainly appreciate the effort people put into them. They either have shows in random orders, or they have, just random shows, like they'll do Barry Craig one week and let George do it another week. So I wanted to do a podcast where we would go through a series all the way in order, and then we'd start on the next one. And it does at times present some challenges, because I listen to, in addition to what I play for the show, I listen to other detective series. And I find myself thinking, boy, I'd love to be able to share this with the audience. I can hardly wait till we get there. But I still have to wait, because I've got to keep it at a sustainable level where I'm not going to burn out doing it. And I've also got to have the discipline to continue on with one show all the way through. Thank you for the comment. Exactly what we were going for. Got a question here from Jeannie, who asked, does anyone know where I can buy the Jack Webb CD of the Johnny Madero radio shows? So far, I can only find them on MP3. Help, please. Thanks to anyone for any information. Well, that can be a bit of a challenge, because I checked and neither of the major commercial producers of audio CDs, old-time radio, actually had Johnny Madero available. And even for shows that they do have on CDs, usually they only have a few. It might be 6 episodes or 8 episodes, or it might be all the way up to 20 episodes. One website, if you really and truly want something on CD, and I know some folks do that because they like CD quality audio, and also like to be able to perhaps share the CD with somebody who's not as tech savvy to play an MP3. You can go to otrsite.com. which is one of the older old-time radio sites on the internet. And you go to his show logs, which list his holdings of titles that he's able to put onto CD, and you give him those give him the codes, and he can order it. It's pricey. It's $16 for each 2-episode CD. Another alternative, if you're just concerned about being able to play it in a CD player, is to just get software that will allow you to burn MP3s onto an audio CD. I hope those options help. Now to that public service announcement I was talking about. I've told you before about the work of Compassion International, how they help provide food, clothing, shelter, and education to children living in third world countries and facing poverty, partnering with local churches who care for the kids where they're at. I also told you when I and my wife started sponsoring a Compassion child, we chose an older child who was 15 at the time and was at that time the oldest child who did not have a sponsor. Well, since that time, the economy in our country has become problematic, and many families have had to cut back, including, unfortunately, on some charitable contributions. And last time I told you about the problem with older children without sponsors, there were 300 older children who had no sponsors. Today I've received communication from Compassion International indicating that number is up to 1,900. So once again, I encourage you, if you've not already, to take a look at Compassion.com and to consider sponsoring a child, particularly an older child above the age of 10, where there is such a great need. Compassion.com. Well, that will do it for today's episode. We'll be back tomorrow with Let George Do It. Well, before we do get started, I do want to let you know that if you would like to advertise your business on the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio, you can email me, box13@greatdetectives.net, for more information. But we're going to go ahead and get into today's episode of Let George Do It, The Silent Waterfall.
Personal notice, danger's my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Standard Oil Company of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invite you to Let George Do It. The Silent Waterfall, another adventure of George Valentine.
Listen to this, George.
Huh?
Dear Mr. Valentine, my name is Dora Duncan. I need your help desperately. I don't know any men that I...
Hey, wait a minute, Brooksy. When did that letter come?
Just now.
Yeah, but the mailman was here an hour ago.
Oh, well, she brought it herself, George.
What?
She's out there in the waiting room now. You know, the deep, dark problem type. Writes a note so she won't have to confide her secrets to the underlings.
Well, shouldn't you explain your lofty status in this menagerie?
Yeah, she's like a duchess imitating Greta Garbo, George. So I just opened her note instead.
Okay, what else is in it?
I don't know any men that I can trust. I don't know any man to turn to. Will you please come to my home this evening at 8 o'clock? I live in the country. Waterfall House on South River Road, signed Dora Duncan.
Yeah, sounds anxious. Well...
It sounds fishy. Come here, George. I left the other door open. There. You can see her through there.
Oh. You mean you can't quite swallow that I don't know any men routine?
Oh, well, she could use a little more makeup.
Makeup would only get in the way, Angel.
George, she's not that good looking. That mink coat she's wearing is real, so she must be wealthy.
There's jumpers on underneath, Angel. Maybe she's only attractive to horses. Uh-oh, she's looking at me. Well, let's go.
What's your step, pony boy?
Miss Duncan, I'm George Valentine. Now, why are you so anxious to have someone at your house tonight? I mean, couldn't you explain it a little more? Yeah, well, now look, Miss Duncan, Miss Brooks here is my assistant. You can say anything you want to in front of her. You can...
George.
You understand me, Miss Duncan?
She's nodding her head.
Yeah, but she can't hear.
She can't speak either. Oh, George, it never even occurred to me that...
Wait a minute. She wants to write. Here's a pencil. Here.
I can read your lips. I could read them through the open door in the other office, too. Mr. Valentine, I wouldn't, for one instant, consider troubling you.
Oh, now, wait a minute, Miss Duncan.
George, stop her.
Look here. I'm sorry. We didn't mean anything. Now, don't turn away. Watch me. Watch my lips. I said I'm sorry. Miss Duncan, you shouldn't be so touchy. Of course we'll be there tonight. I said we'll be there. 8 o'clock. Do you understand me? Do you?
George. She kissed you.
Yeah. And she'd been crying.
Well, come in. Come on in before the house blows down. I'm her sister. I'm Cynthia. Here, I'll take your coat, Miss Brooks.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, there we go. Oh, boy, look at that fireplace.
Well, help yourself. She'll be down, I guess. The maid says she's dressing tonight. That's because I have a suit on.
What's that?
Huh?
She'll be down. That's her music you hear. Drums. Plays a stack of drum records on her phonograph all the time. Says she can feel the rhythm of it. You want a drink? Drum buoy, maybe?
No, thanks. Say, this is quite a place, isn't it?
I guess so.
I will. Somebody's a hunter. All the trophies and the guns hanging on the wall.
My father. He's dead, though. She likes it, too. He used to take her riding and fishing with him all the time.
Tell me, Cynthia, has your sister always been the way she is?
No, Mr. Valentine. Dora lost her hearing from an accident when she was 13 years old.
Oh. But then her speech shouldn't have been...
Oh, that was part of it. She was in bed for more than a year. It was one of those mental things, too. The doctor said she was forgetting how. But she can hear and talk a little now if she wants to.
I see. She used to have a beautiful voice, and now she can't trust what it sounds like. She can't hear it. She's proud.
Catch on quick, don't you? What are you doing here tonight?
Well, didn't Dora inform you?
I've only seen her for a few minutes since she got back.
You mean back from town this afternoon?
Back from India. Yesterday. You didn't know that?
No. Well, what difference does it make? So she traveled?
Yes, she traveled. And when she got back, she sent for me. She ordered me out here tonight, too.
What is it you want to explain, Cynthia?
Nothing. Why should I? This is her house. It's her money. Father left it all to her, and the courts upheld it. She's a poor, suffering little thing, Mr. Valentine, and you might as well... Oh, it's 8 o'clock, isn't it?
Yes, but I think that's the door.
I know, but I've got to shut that door, those drums.
Hello.
Oh, it's you.
Can I come in, Cynthia?
Of course, Jake.
Oh, thanks. Dora wanted me to...
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, it sure is a cold night. It's almost as cold as Hey, is that him?
What? Oh, no. That's not Everett.
Oh.
You needn't look so tough, darling. This is Jake Mannering. Miss Brooks, Mr. Valentine.
Oh, well, hello. I'm sure pleased to meet you.
Jake is the next-door neighbor.
Uh-huh. Well, who's Everett, Cynthia?
Everett? Everett Stone. The devil.
Oh, great. That doesn't tell me
Now,
anything.
look, Cynthia, there's no need
He's
to...
Mr. Mannering's new competition, isn't he, Jake?
No, he's not. Just some guy Dora met on the boat coming home, Mr. Valentine, or over there in India. I don't know. Cynthia doesn't know either. She's never met him.
Oh, but Dora told you all about him, didn't she? Wasn't that what you were yelling at her for out there after supper? Out there in the dollhouse? So funny, Miss Brooks, the way people forget and raise their voices at a deaf person.
Cynthia, I didn't see Dora in the dollhouse, and besides, I don't yell at people. Now, will you please stop all this?
I'm sorry, Jake. I didn't really know what it was. I guess I'm awfully tired.
Oh, sure, Cynthia, but... Gosh, you folks must think that
What's
we're
the matter,
all...
Mr. Valentine? Where are you going?
Oh, no place particular. Just listening to the drums. You know, that's the same record was playing when we came in here.
George.
The phonograph up there is just turning them over and over.
Dora?
Her evening clothes are still laid out on the bed, George.
Yeah.
The maid said she hadn't seen her since lunch. Clothes and the records and everything were just notes. Dora gives all her orders by note.
Uh-huh, lunch, huh? Well, around supper time, it was the dollhouse. Okay, let's take a look at that dollhouse. How about that? A perfect little dollhouse right on the river by a waterfall.
Oh, the fall's upstream a little ways. Oh, here, will you flip your flashlight over? It's a pretty fancy dollhouse. Her father built it for Dora. She likes the rhythm of the water, I guess. She always has.
But George, she's not here either.
That's Cynthia. Come on!
No, this way, upstream.
Dora! She's drowned! She's been drowned!
Okay, I'll call Riley when we get back to the house.
Yes, George.
Hey, Brooksy, Dora was upstream from the dollhouse, just below the waterfall. So it must have happened farther up someplace, and the body was washed over the fall and then against the bank there. But, Brooksy, I'm positive it happened at least an hour or two ago. Just like I'm positive it wasn't suicide.
What's that, Mr. Valentine?
He was just saying... Who else could have been around here a couple of hours ago, Cynthia?
Well, anybody with all the woods here. What do you mean? I mean, there was nobody supposed to be here. Except maybe that stone person.
Uh-huh, him again.
I don't really know, of course.
Hey, wait a minute, hold it, listen.
Hello there. Hello. Where is everybody? I say hello.
Oh, Mr. Frail.
Cynthia, there you are. What on earth's going on out here?
Mr. Frail, something
How do you do,
terrible.
Mr. Frail? My name's Valentine.
What's that?
Let's both say it together. Who are you?
Well, any friend of Dora's is a friend of mine, young man. Cynthia, I'm so sorry I couldn't make it out any earlier, but the traffic...
Oh.
Valentine, huh? I thought perhaps you were this stone chap. I'm Dora's lawyer, you know. Business investments and those... I say, who's that coming now? That's Jake, isn't it? What on earth is he carrying in that blanket?
He's carrying your client, Mr. Frail. Stick around. Maybe you can defend somebody for murder.
I don't know why we're here, I tell you. I rather assumed it was to meet this new young man, that's all.
Oh, sure. Stone. That's all I hear.
But at least you can hear, Mr. Valentine. Life wasn't very easy for Dora, you know, living in the silence, not knowing what people were saying, people trying to take advantage of her.
That's not true, Mr. Frail.
Now, see here,
Nobody
Jake.
ever took advantage of her. Nobody ever tried to, not even for her money. She just thought they were. She wouldn't let herself be loved. She was so proud, so afraid of pity.
Just because you weren't successful, young
She
man.
never let herself love anybody. I'm just trying to face it. I don't know who this guy Stone is, but I can't believe
I'll
that
tell you who he is, Mr. Valentine. A fortune hunter, that's all. A smooth-talking fortune hunter. And some man was with her earlier this evening, you said? Cynthia heard a man's voice in the dollhouse, and if it wasn't Jake here,
You
then...
talk too much yourself, Mr. Frail. No. I'll go answer that.
Hi, Mac. Duncan's residence, ain't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I got a fare looking for it.
Oh, wait a minute. Who is he?
How should I know? Don't ask me.
Never mind. I see now. Yeah, it's the people's choice. Who else?
What's this?
Here comes the guy who shouts at people, Mr. Frail. The smooth-talking fortune hunter. Now, why didn't I guess?
What do you mean?
Oh, I should have figured the guy a girl like Dora might have fallen for. Hello, Mr. Everett Stone. Welcome to nothing.
No point in talking to him, Mac.
Yeah, I know. He's deaf and dumb, too, isn't he?
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. Now's the time of year when Chevron Supreme gasoline lends a helping hand to your car in more ways than one. Take this business of cold starts, for example. It can be awfully exasperating bearing down the starter with no results. And that means an unnecessary drain on your car's battery, too. Chevron Supreme, a premium quality gasoline, contains special blending agents that assure fast starts in the coldest weather. Not only that, it's climate tailored to meet the demands of each different altitude and temperature zone in the West. That's why wherever you drive, Chevron Supreme gives faster starts, smoother pickup in traffic, and ping-free power on hills. In fact, you can't buy a better gasoline for today's high-compression engines. Try a tankful. You'll notice right away how much better your car responds. Ask for Chevron Supreme at standard stations and independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean we take better care of your car. She was a strange, proud girl, oversensitive about the fact that she couldn't speak or hear. She asked you and several others to keep an urgent evening appointment at her palatial home in the country, Waterfall House. Well, you kept the appointment, but she didn't, because Dora Duncan was dead before any of you arrived. And now the last and strangest of the guests has arrived, the person no one knew and everyone seemed to suspect, until they realized that Everett Stone, Dora's newest boyfriend, is a man who lives in the same half-world of silence.
I'm watching, Mr. Stone. Write some more.
That's who I am, Miss Brooks. A bum, I guess. Until a friend brought her to me there in Calcutta. She was wonderful to me. Maybe because I was even worse off than she. It only happened to me a year ago, my being like this, result of the shock. I guess I was pretty sour until I met her. She was even starting me on learning how to read lips. She was even... Oh, nuts.
Go on, Mr. Stone. Keep writing, won't you?
I loved her. Now look. Welcome to nothing.
I know. But did she say anything to you about planning to meet a man out here around supper time at the dollhouse? Oh, here. Meeting man out here, the dollhouse.
No. What do you mean? What man? Where is Mr. Valentine?
No, Riley, I haven't found the place it happened yet. It was out in the woods, up the river.
All right. I'll be out there as fast as I can. We'll get some men to help after I get out there.
The local doc says she was dead before her lungs filled, so it wasn't drowning, you understand me?
Oh, Valentine, how you can always manage to get mixed up in... Now, look, I tell you what you do.
Never mind, I know what to do. Find a guy who does exactly what you're doing.
Huh?
Yells at people, even if they can't hear. Feeling any better, Cynthia?
Oh, I've just been crying. I can't help it.
Why have you been crying, Cynthia? You didn't like her. She's dressing tonight. That's because I have a suit on.
What?
She's a poor, suffering little thing, Mr. Valentine.
Stop it.
Cynthia, you hated Dora. You made that clear.
Mr. Valentine.
She ordered you out here tonight, you said. Dora's so beautiful. She's got all the money. She gets all the sympathy.
No.
She gets all the boys, isn't that it? It's about Jake. You love him. Lady, maybe I don't blame you for resenting your sister.
You should. You should.
She was handicapped. But she wasn't like most people when they're handicapped. She was a little hard to take, maybe.
Oh, my trouble is I've always been normal.
She didn't want Jake, but she wouldn't let you have him. Only out there in the dollhouse, for some reason, he got mad at her. It was Jake's voice you heard, wasn't it? That was your first impression, and that's who it was.
No. I don't know who it was.
Yeah. Now you're again saying you heard it. Confused, aren't you? So either you're protecting the guy, or...
Or what?
Or you're protecting yourself. Thanks for clearing up the motive, Cynthia. Yours, I mean.
The question was nice and simple, Mr. Frail. Now, once again, how much money did Dora Duncan have?
But really, with the current value of investment...
How much?
I should say 800,000 or 900,000. Of course, one can't be sure. Why?
Well, it's a stock poser my friend Riley always asks the minute he comes in the door. Money, motive, money.
Yeah. I'm just an old cynic. Now, where's this guy, Jake Mannering?
I'm here, Lieutenant. I'm sure pleased
Save it
to...
and listen. We ran a check with all the specialists in town, and one of them clicked. Definite improvement after her trip, the doc says. 25% hearing, he called it.
Okay, Riley, so Dora was getting well.
And so she ordered a gathering of the clan out here tonight, my friend. Why? Why? Did someone speak out of turn and get her upset? Huh? Think about it. Come on, Valentine, let's go.
Hold it, Riley.
Why? I want to go upstairs?
Since you started this, let's wind it up.
Huh?
Oh, Brooksy,
Yes, George.
has he finished yet?
Just about. It took time to write all the questions. Here.
Oh, good. Oh, excuse me, Everett. This is Lieutenant Riley. Lieutenant Riley.
He knows, George.
Yeah, well, how do you do, Everett?
Now, let's see. I had to remain in town to see about luggage and so on. Besides, I believe Dora wanted to surprise everyone with the news of our marriage.
Wait a minute, what's that?
Hey, you mean Everett here?
Dora and I had been married by the captain of our ship just after we sailed from India. How about that, Riley? Now let's do some guessing about what else she was going to tell at 8 o'clock.
All right. So you put a bee in everybody's bonnet.
Well, that's all you were doing, Lieutenant.
But I didn't try to get a bullet put in somebody's bonnet.
Yes, George, don't you see? If Dora was murdered before any of them knew that she was married...
Yeah, and you pull your smart stunt in a house full of guns.
Okay, so Everett here is in danger now.
If this does have anything to do with Dora's money, then Everett stands just as much in the way of the killer as she did.
You're up against a case with no real clues, Riley. You won't get anywhere unless you force someone's hand.
With what? Those boys I've got upstream haven't even found the place where she was killed yet. They haven't even found
Besides, if there are any bullets aimed at the kid here, I'll get him first.
What?
Yeah, come on, Everett.
Hey, Valentine. Wait
You
a minute.
too, Brooksy. We got places to go.
The dollhouse, George?
Yeah, this thing won't make sense otherwise. Come on in.
Here, Everett.
Now, look, the starting point's her character. Dora loved this place by the river. She liked the rhythm of the falls. Well, she was unhappy this afternoon, so where else do you think she'd come?
But, George, her body was upstream. George, what are you doing?
Here, write him a note, Angel. I don't want him to think I'm crazy throwing a wooden tray off the balcony. There it is. See?
George, it's going toward the waterfall.
Uh-huh. Floating in a circle.
But it's moving upstream.
It's an eddy, that's all, from the waterfall. I see. Now it's swinging toward the bank again.
And a body would do that, too, wouldn't it? There. It's right where we found her body.
Uh-huh.
So she was killed here, wasn't she? She was killed and thrown off this balcony.
Hey, look at this, Brooksy. Spot on the rug.
Blood?
And that mark on the railing out there.
So there are clues. Maybe even fingerprints. The murderer wasn't able to...
Oh, he tried to clean up all right, but he needed time. That back current out there gave it to him. Now, Riley's men are still a mile away, beating the brush.
I can run over to the house.
No. Now's the murderer's chance to come out here. And now that he's looking for Everett anyway.
What?
There's nothing, I guess. I wonder if the kid over there would be game... Here, Everett. Give me the pencil. Now. Hey, did you hear that?
No.
Well, now look, Brooksy. Take the flashlight and get out of here fast.
Oh, but
Never
George,
mind anything. Get going. Move upstream. Make lots of noise. You're supposed to be all of us. Understand? Come on, now hurry.
Okay, George.
Now, take it easy, Everett. It's all right. Oh, your note. Here, I'll write another one. We're the welcoming committee. I've spotted enough evidence in here to hang the murderer. He has to come back to destroy it. Just keep quiet and... What's the matter? What is it, Everett? You want the pencil?
It will be welcome to nothing, Mr. Valentine. There are guns up in the house.
Huh? What do you mean? Oh, yeah, he'll be armed, won't he? Well, hey, wait a minute. Dora kept her things down here. She liked to hunt, too, didn't she? Sure. Sure, come on, help me find something. That's it. Well, there's nothing over here, but... Huh? Yeah, a rifle. Good. That'll do it. Thanks. Now, you stay down here, Everett, behind the door. That's it. That's good. I'll get back by the balcony. See better from there. Now, don't you worry, kid. It's about over. Funny how it gets in your ears, the rhythm of the waterfall. Gets in your head, and you hear nothing else. Hey, listen. No, that wasn't anything. She was a lonely girl, Dora. But she was proud, like the waterfall. Wouldn't let herself love anything until you came along. And you were worse off than she was. Wonder what it's like to hear nothing but water falling and drums pounding.
Valentine.
What was that? No, I don't hear anything. Just the water. Wait a minute, what's that?
He's here.
Something outside, I guess.
I can't say what it is, but it's...
Cynthia heard something down here at supper time. A man's voice. The man who killed her sister. The door open? Can't tell. The waterfall makes so much noise. Where is he? I can't hear him. Where is he?
Fire at the Valentine soon!
I guess you can stop standing in the doorway, Riley, and turn on the lights.
Okay.
Thanks.
Wait.
Well, that waterfall does get in the guy's ears.
Oh, no.
It would have been hard for Cynthia to tell what man's voice she heard down here yelling at Dora. But Dora could hear a little herself, couldn't she? No wonder she was so upset when she came to my office. Wanted a man she could trust to be here tonight.
Despite the fact she had a brand new husband.
Yeah. That was going to be the 8 o'clock announcement, I guess. She was going to say that she heard a voice. A voice that tonight yelled at her. The poor kid, Riley, was going to expose the biggest heel in the world.
Let me out of here. Let me out! Don't take it easy, bud. That's better. That's it. The guy who couldn't hear or talk. How about this guy, Valentine? Fortune hunting with a new angle. No voice.
Cynthia, the only thing you should feel bad about is that he almost got away with it.
Yeah. You know, Everett put in a lot of practice for that act. It was going to be worth $800,000 or $900,000, wasn't it? Getting his sympathy, being her husband.
And if I hadn't read that note George wrote me the minute I got outside saying to get Lieutenant Riley,
He might have got away with it.
Well, I knew the only way to make Everett talk in front of anybody was to scare him into it. Feed him a lot of phony stuff about finding evidence, like coffee stains on the rug.
Coffee stains? Why, you said...
Yeah, Everett actually thought if I'd shoot Jake or Mr. Frail, then there'd be a fall guy. And the evidence would just be a few notes and a post-mortem. He'd be left clear. That's why he was so anxious to give me that rifle.
How did you guess, Mr. Valentine?
Welcome to nothing.
That was a phrase of George's Everett seemed to like. Not much to go on, but, well, he repeated it in 2 of his notes.
Mm-hmm. And when I gave him that phrase, I spoke it. He was just getting out of a taxi. It was dark. And what really clinched it, your sister had only begun to teach him how to read lips.
I wonder if Dora really loved him.
You mean, if she really loved Jake, don't you?
Oh, no. I know that she didn't care for Jake, but...
But has Jake got over caring for her? That's the question, huh? Well, why don't you answer the door and find out?
But
Go on, Cynthia, go on. Don't stand on ceremony.
Yes. I see what you mean.
George, well, you are in favor of love, aren't you?
Angel, let's sort of put it this way. I think it's here to stay.
If you're headed for the snow country or planning any jaunt next weekend, first stop at a standard station or at an independent Chevron gas station and ask for a battery check. These friendly station men can give you this protective service in about the same time it takes you to buckle on your skis. They'll make sure the battery's charged, that its water level is right, its terminal posts and clamps clean, and they'll inspect those all-important battery cables for signs of corrosion. Remember, a battery in A1 condition helps your car start fast, keeps the lights bright, assures top performance from your car radio and heater. But you don't have to wait for a long trip before asking for this protective service. For your own safety and comfort, wouldn't it be wise to get a battery check tomorrow? Ask for this speedy service at an independent Chevron gas station or at a standard station where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard Oil Company of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Daly is starred as George. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Virginia Gregg appeared as Brooksy, Wally Mayer as Lieutenant Riley. Jeanette Nolan was heard as Cynthia, John Daner as Jake, Ed Begley as Frail, and Tony Barrett as Everett. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. This had a lot of great twists and turns in it, I thought. Though my first thought when I found out that George's client was deaf was that this is kind of a cost-saving measure on radio. But it definitely worked well into the plot. The ending here reminded me of an episode of Columbo, The Most Dangerous Match, in that both involved our detective hero using a high volume of sound to prove something about the murderer's hearing. Of course, it was different in The Dangerous Match in that Columbo was actually trying to prove the murderer guilty because of something he couldn't hear, but a very similar device. Well, we turn now to listener comments. We had a couple people email in regarding the end of Snowblind. John says, in your commentary, you suggested there was a plot hole due to the Hans driving the car he sabotaged. It came across to me that he shot himself, so I listened to the ending again, and I'm fairly certain that he committed suicide. And Melissa says, in Snowblind, I thought Hans shot himself when he saw that his only car was the one he sabotaged. That's what it sounded like to me. Well, thanks so much for the feedback. Radio is the theater of the mind, and it works well when the mind works well. Good catch there. She also adds, love both apps. You do a wonderful job, and I'm enjoying your book, too. Well, thanks so much, Melissa. Well, we do have a review on iTunes. David of Dallas writes, this has to be one of the best podcasts on iTunes. Adam has brought back a genre of radio that is missing in today's world, and I personally find this much more interesting than listening to the same tired radio DJ music and all the stupid commercials. Adam's commentary in the background of the actors is a wonderful addition to each show. The big question, which is my favorite? They are all great shows, but my personal favorite is Box 13. Alan Ladd put a great effort into each show, and the results were wonderful. Keep up the good work, Adam. Well, thanks so much, David. And we've got a donation from Marvy, who gave a $7 tip, and just said, for the premium subscription, which comes with all tips $7 or more. Enjoy your show. Thanks, Marvy. And I went ahead and sent that subscription information along. I appreciate your support. And that'll actually do it for now. We will be back tomorrow with Sherlock Holmes. Before we do get started, I do want to let you know that if you'd like to advertise your business on the great detectives of old-time radio, send me an email, box13@greatdetectives.net, for more details. But we're going to get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, The Adventure of Maltree Abbey.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Well, once again, it's time to keep that pleasantest of all doctor's appointments, our weekly visit with our excellent host and incomparable storyteller, Dr. Watson. Good evening, Dr. Watson.
There you are, Mr. Bell. Just in time to join me in a glass of port. The decanter's there on the sideboard. Help yourself and then settle down.
Fine, Dr. Watson. I suppose you're all ready with tonight's new Sherlock Holmes story, The Adventure of Maltree Abbey, isn't it?
Yes, my boy, and in many ways I'm inclined to think it was one of the most singular adventures that Sherlock Holmes and I ever had. But before I begin the weird adventure of Maltree Abbey, haven't you got a word for our listeners?
Yes, Dr. Watson, I have. Men, neat-looking, well-groomed hair does so much to give a man that air of success, to say nothing of adding to his good looks. And I'm sure you'll be interested in hearing about this modern trend in hair grooming, which has become such a nationwide favorite. It's called Kreml Hair Tonic. This highly specialized hair tonic contains a combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. Yes, that's exactly why Kreml gives a man's hair such a natural, well-groomed look and keeps it in place longer, keeps every hair in perfect order from morning till night. Yet Kreml never gives hair that cheap, greasy, patent leather look. Kreml keeps hair looking mighty handsome with a rich, healthy-looking luster. Yet it always feels and looks so clean on your hair and scalp. Men, if you aren't already using a hair tonic, try Kreml. If you're using some other hair dressing, change to Kreml. Then see if your hair doesn't look better than it ever did before. Better groomed, better looking when you use Kreml. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, how about the Venerable Bede and the Adventure of Maltree Abbey?
Well, Mr. Bell, that story began in Baker Street on the December afternoon many, many years ago. And shortly after tea, I remember, when Sherlock Holmes, who'd been pacing up and down our room, suddenly stopped at the window and looked intently out at the street below him. After a few moments, my curiosity overcame me, and I joined my old friend. Looking over his shoulder, I saw that on the pavement opposite there stood a young woman dressed in the height of Edwardian fashion. She wore a fur boa and a broad-brimmed hat, from under which she peeped up in a nervous, hesitating fashion at our windows, while her body oscillated backward and forward. Suddenly, with a plunge like the swimmer who leaves the bank, she hurried across the road, and we heard the clang of our front door bell. Took her a long enough time to make up her mind, didn't it, Holmes?
Yes, Watson. I've seen those symptoms before in women. Oscillation on the pavement generally means an affaire du coeur. She would like advice, but is not sure whether the matter is not too delicate for communication.
She looked a pretty little thing. Perhaps some scoundrels jilted her.
Oh, no, Watson. In such a case, the usual symptom is a broken bell wire. Here, I think we may deduce the young lady is not so much angry as grieved or perplexed. Why not meet her at the head of the stairs, old chap? I know Mrs. Hudson's rheumatism is bothering her.
Yes, of course I will. This way, young lady. It's all right, thank you, Mrs. Hudson. I'm Dr. Watson. Won't you come along in?
Thank you, Dr. Watson.
This is my friend, Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
How do you do?
How do you do? I'm Sybil Carter, and I need your help, Mr. Holmes.
Then please be seated, Miss Carter. I presume it is Miss, since I see no ring on your wedding finger.
Yes, it's Miss. Though that awful man, Jonathan Devers, would like to make it Mrs.
Oh, I can quite understand any man wanting
Quiet, Watson.
Oh, sorry.
Please tell me your problem, Miss Carter.
Well, I can tell you in 2 words, gentlemen. Jonathan Devers wanted to marry me, and that was bad enough. But even to save the Maltree fortunes, I couldn't marry him. Now he wants Harold to leave the country and disappear. And when we think of the Abbey and the tenants, what can we do? I know that my brother's dead set against outside interference, but tonight is when we play the music. And if only you could be there.
Oh, that's considerably more than 2 words, Miss Carter. I'm afraid I can't make head or tail of any of them.
Nor can I. Supposing you begin again and talk more slowly.
Oh, very well, Mr. Holmes.
Perhaps it'll be better if I ask questions. You mention your brother's title. May I ask what that title is?
My brother's Harold Carter, the 14th Earl of Maltree, and the poorest. Confidentially, we're in a dreadful way financially. Harold invested in Canadian copper last year. The market dropped recently, and we were nearly wiped out. That's when this awful Jonathan Devers came on the scene.
And who is Jonathan Devers?
Oh, he's a cousin of ours from South Africa. He's a dreadful bore, but extremely wealthy.
And he wants to marry you, sir?
Yes, but even for the sake of the Abbey and the Maltree fortunes, I couldn't do that. Now he's offered Harold £50,000 in cash if he'll go abroad and pretend to disappear. You see, Jonathan Devers is next of male kin in line for the inheritance.
So Mr. Devers is trying to bribe your brother to disappear so that he may inherit the title and estates?
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
In this particular matter, I fail to see how I can help you.
Oh, but you can, Mr. Holmes. You see, the first Earl of Maltree, he was created by Henry VIII, you know, left a family motto. It's inscribed in our private chapel at the Abbey. It says, "If the Maltrees be in need, seek the Venerable Bede."
Beadle's some fellow who works in the parish, isn't he?
Bede, Watson, not Beadle.
Oh, Bede.
Yes, spelt B-E-D-E.
Oh, Bede.
The Venerable Bede, if I'm not mistaken, was an 8th century monk who is revered not only as a saint, but as the first great English historian.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. We have a statue of him in the chapel. And then we have a family custom that... Oh, I know this may sound silly to you.
Oh, don't worry, Miss Carter. I'm aware that some of these old, crusted superstitions often conceal surprising truths. Pray continue.
Well, it's been passed down in the family that if ever the Maltrees were in trouble, they should play a very peculiar piece of music which he composed.
Piece of music? What an odd idea.
Extremely interesting. And you're planning to play the music tonight, you say?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. Heaven alone knows the Maltrees couldn't be in worse trouble than they are now. And I want you to be there. Only Harold doesn't. So I thought if you'd bring your violin, I could pretend that you had just come to hear the music.
An excellent idea, Miss Carter. As I remember, Maltree Abbey is in Gloucestershire.
Yes, Mr. Holmes, at Chipping Martin. An express leaves Paddington at 5:30. Perhaps we could travel together?
Certainly.
So it seems like a wild goose chase, Holmes. An 8th century monk and strange music. Sounds like a lot of mumbo-jumbo to me.
Where's your chivalry, Watson? In any case, shall you recall the singular affair of the Musgrave ritual? There's no telling what these old family customs may portend. So be a good fellow and pack your bag. There's no time to be lost.
I'll just have time to show you the chapel before dinner, gentlemen.
Thank you, Lord Carter.
And after dinner, I shall be happy to gratify your musical curiosity, Mr. Holmes. But you mustn't regard my sister's visit today too seriously. Sybil's an overly emotional girl. And quite frankly, I wish that she hadn't approached you. I feel that Maltree Abbey is my duty. I'll find some way to save it, and my tenants.
I trust that the music will live up to its magical reputation.
Well, this is the chapel.
What a beautiful building. Must be very old.
Oh, it's 16th century. The Abbey house was built nearly 100 years later. Hold your lantern a little higher, Dr. Watson. That's it. Now, I want to show you a prized possession. There you are.
Magnificent. Quite magnificent. This, I presume, is the statue of the Venerable Bede that your sister spoke of.
Yes. It's an excellent specimen of 16th century wood carving. Note particularly the delicate work on the beads of the rosary.
Odd. Very odd indeed.
What's odd, Holmes?
The fact that the...
How many times do I have to tell you to keep away from me, you filthy scum?
Don't you take your whip to me, sir. I'm not doing nothing.
What on the devil's going on out there? Come on.
Confound your impudence. Take that!
Oh, don't you lay your whip on me.
Jonathan, what's the matter?
Harold, I demand that you discharge this groom of yours.
You can't whip me, Mr. Devers. I'll have your blood for this, I will.
Well, what's he done, Jonathan?
He's been following me. Twice today I bumped into him in the grounds. Not half an hour ago I was taking a walk by the bottomless tarn, and I found him skulking behind me. Now I bump into him sneaking after me here. I say you must discharge him, Harold.
But he was only hired today. I suppose you're right. Wilson, you may collect a week's wages and leave in the morning.
I wasn't doing no harm. Just trying to deliver a telegram. That's why I came here. Is one of you gents Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
I am he.
Then this telegram come for you. I was only trying to find you when this son of a South African slave driver comes in. Oh, I'll have your blood, you see, if I don't.
That's enough, Wilson. Now, clear out. I'm sorry, Jonathan. Oh, by the way, this is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Mr. Jonathan Devers.
How do you do?
How do you do, Mr. Devers?
Ah, yes. Sybil told me that you were having distinguished company at your musical soiree tonight. How are you, gentlemen? If excuse me. We'll see you at dinner, no doubt.
Bully, that poor devil of a groom was half his size.
Mr. Devers mentioned that he was walking by the Bottomless Tarn half an hour ago. What, may I ask, is the Bottomless Tarn?
Oh, it's a lake on the estate. It's just behind the gamekeeper's cottage. There's a legend that it's fathomless. All I know is that some years ago a prize heifer of mine was seen to fall in and drown. We dragged the lake, but no grappling hooks we could obtain touched the bottom.
Interesting.
Holmes, the telegram that fellow brought you.
Ah, yes, the telegram. Give me the lantern, Watson. Thanks. An extremely illuminating message. Read it for yourself, Lord Carter.
It says nothing but my cousin's name, Jonathan Devers.
And yet the message is quite eloquent. It is in answer to a query I made before leaving London. Who forced that market drop in Canadian copper which wiped out the Maltree fortunes?
You mean that Jonathan deliberately smashed me, Holmes?
It would seem obvious.
Yes, it's perfectly clear that Devers covets the title and stop at nothing to get it.
Holmes, what am I going to do? What the devil am I going to do?
We must wait until after dinner and hope that the musical composition may give us a solution to your unhappy problem.
Now that Sybil's played that rather dull piece of discordancy, I hope you're all satisfied. Naturally, the Maltree fortunes will be restored. Very funny, Jonathan.
What do you make of it, Mr. Holmes?
It's curious. Very curious. Will you repeat that principal theme again, please, Miss Carter?
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Miss Carter. I think I begin to get a glimmering of the mysterious message.
Yeah, blessed if I do. Sounds like a jumble of meaningless notes to me.
Never mind, Dr. Watson. Your brilliant friend thinks that he saved the Maltree fortunes. In that case, Harold, I suppose you won't need to see Mr. Alexander in London tomorrow.
Why, how did you know that?
That your solicitor planned to start bankruptcy proceedings at the latest tomorrow? I, too, have my investigators, Harold. They seem a bit more efficient than your great Sherlock Holmes. Good night, Sybil. Good night, gentlemen. There you are again. What are you doing, listening at the door, you filthy swine?
I was just going to the kitchen.
Oh! Get to the stables where you belong. I see that groom again, Harold, I'll break his neck. See that he goes tonight.
How dare he speak to you like that, Harold? He's not master here.
Not yet, Sybil. But I can't hold on to the place much longer, and he knows it.
He's a thoroughly unpleasant scoundrel, if you ask me.
Mr. Holmes, you said the music gave you some clue to the message?
It did, Miss Carter. But it requires thought and a certain amount of musical experimentation. I doubt if this music room would welcome the consumption of an ounce or two of shag tobacco. I think, therefore, that Watson and I will retire to our own room. With the aid of a pipe and my violin, I shall give the matter undivided attention. And tomorrow...
Tomorrow, Maltree Abbey will go into receivership.
Not while Sherlock Holmes is on the case.
Oh, thank you, Watson. A man of my peculiar modesty needs your constant reassurance.
I can finally sleep at home.
Then why not go to sleep, my dear
Well,
chap?
how can I when you keep scraping away that wretched fiddle? Lot of rubbish. Stood up half the night. Where'll it get you? Oh, yeah, I'm going to sleep.
When the Maltrees are in need, seek
the Venerable Bede. This music will solve the Maltree's problems. You can't whip me, Mr. Devers. I'll have your blood for this, I will.
Too bad that your solicitor is starting bankruptcy proceedings tomorrow.
You must help us. You must.
When the Maltrees are in need, seek the Venerable Bede.
I've got it. Watson, wake up, wake up.
What's the matter? What's up, Holmes?
I've got the answer, Watson. I've solved the musical message. Before the night is through, I think we shall find the secret of Maltree Abbey.
In just a moment, we'll rejoin Sherlock Holmes and discover just what that secret is. Leading hair specialists in this country constantly advise us to take better care of the hair we've got. And men, don't forget that if you want your hair handsome and healthy looking, one of the first requirements is a hygienic scalp. And why settle for just any hair dressing when you can enjoy the extra advantages of Kreml hair tonic? Kreml is a highly specialized hair tonic which gives you your money's worth. It contains a unique combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair preparation. It keeps hair attractively groomed at all times, looking so neat and orderly. But Kreml does lots more than keep hair looking handsome. A Kreml massage stimulates circulation right in the surface of your scalp and leaves your scalp feeling so alive and invigorated. At the same time, Kreml removes dandruff flakes, and it's excellent to lubricate a dry scalp. And if your hair is so dry that it breaks off and falls when you comb it, Kreml actually helps condition the hair in that it makes it feel softer and more pliable. So men, take better care of the hair you've got. Buy a bottle of Kreml at any drug counter. Ask for an application at your barber shop. Use Kreml daily for better groomed hair, for a more hygienic scalp. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Well, Dr. Watson, I'm just as confused as I'm sure you must have been when Sherlock Holmes awakened you. What was the musical message?
Supposing I tell you the story in its actual sequence, Mr. Bell. I quickly dressed, and in the moonlight, Holmes and I stealthily crept down the corridor to Lord Carter's room. A few moments later, the three of us, carrying lanterns, started down the staircase leading to the main hall. Holmes, as we went into Lord Carter's room, I'm sure, absolutely certain that I saw another door down the corridor half open and then closed.
Which door was it?
The last one on the right.
Well, that's Jonathan Zever's room.
Well, I suppose he knows what we're up to, which I must confess is more than I do.
Well, if I'm right, not even Devers can stop us now. You're being confoundedly mysterious, Holmes. Will you tell me why we're heading for the chapel at 2 a.m? In a few moments, I shall make the reason extremely clear to you, I hope. Well, here's the door.
Look. Through the stained glass windows over there. I swear there's someone with a lantern in the grounds outside.
Our immediate problem is here, inside. Focus your lantern on the statue of the Venerable Bede, Watson. That's where the answer to the Maltree legend lies, I think. For heaven's sake, Holmes, I wish you would be more explicit. Very well. Let me see if I can whistle those notes written in the musical theme. The notes are B, E, D, E, B, E, A, D. These notes were followed by a rhythmically repeated series of the note D 4 times. Surely now the pattern becomes clear.
Well, the notes B, E, D, E obviously stand for Bede, the Venerable Bede, and we're standing in front of a statue here now.
But the second 4 notes are B, E, A, D. You yourself pointed out the rosary on the Venerable Bede statue, Lord Carter. The notes B, E, A, D must refer to the beads of the rosary. That's why I became suspicious on first seeing the statue. The rosary did not come into use till almost 5 centuries after the Venerable Bede. Yet his statue had one.
Then what does the repetition of the note D 4 times mean after the melody?
I think it gives us the vital clue. D is the 4th letter in the alphabet, and it's repeated 4 times. Let's see what happens when we press the 4th bead on the Venerable Bede's rosary. So, by George, I think you're on the right track, Holmes.
You are. Look at that section of wall behind the font. It's slid back.
Come on. Let's see what it takes us to.
There's a narrow stone staircase leading below.
Well, I'll go first. Holmes, perhaps you have saved the Maltree fortunes after all.
I hope so, Lord Carter, I hope so. Watch your head, Watson.
Oh, must have built these steps for pygmies. Holmes, do you suppose we'll find any hidden treasure down here?
I shall suppose nothing, Watson. In a few moments, there will be no need for conjecture.
Holmes, I'm afraid we've drawn a blank.
What's wrong, Lord Carter?
Now look for yourself.
A deserted crypt. Nothing but a few cobwebby old relics.
Yes. A crucifix, a Bible, a gutted candlestick on the table here. Oh, they may have some small intrinsic value, but nothing else. Oh, I was a fool to have any hopes. I was expecting to find buried treasure.
Wait a moment. Something, possibly the treasure, has recently been removed from here.
Well, what makes you say that, Holmes?
The room is thick with dust, and yet there's a large rectangular space free from dust on the table, as though a heavy folio volume had recently been lying there.
By George, you're right, Holmes.
And look here on the floor. Fresh footprints. Yes, someone has recently anticipated our discovery.
Well, it's not very hard to guess who that someone was. Jonathan Devers.
Aha. Observe these curious marks on the floor by the table. 4 round dots, rectangularly spaced. I should say that a Gladstone bag has been placed here. A bag that was undoubtedly used to remove the treasure.
But why, Holmes? Why carry off a heavy book in a bag?
Supposing that book were of priceless value, Watson. Suppose it were the heirloom of the Maltree family, and its discovery by the rightful owner might save the estate.
Yes. And I'm sure that Devers is quite capable of stealing it. The question is, though, what would he do with it?
Precisely. And to answer that question, I shall try and imagine myself in the shoes of Mr. Devers. I'm a millionaire, and therefore I don't need the treasure. Too risky to sell it anyway. All I want to do is to keep it from the Maltrees, so I'll destroy it. But how? I haven't the time or the opportunity to burn it. Difficult with a heavy book in any case. So I'm looking for some place to dispose of it where it may never be recovered. A fathomless lake on this estate. That'd be the place.
The bottomless tarn?
Of course. Remember the Devers told us earlier that he'd been walking by it this evening?
Then let's go there as fast as we can. I can only pray that we're not too late.
Look. There, in the moonlight. It's Jonathan Devers. He's running towards the edge of the lake.
Yes, and he's carrying a Gladstone bag.
Which means that we can run faster than he can. You have your revolver, Watson?
Yes, I have.
Don't hesitate to use it. This devil's work must be stopped. Come on, faster.
Oh, we'll never catch him. He's at the edge of the tarn.
Drop that bag, Mr. Devers.
You're too late, my friend.
Drop it or I'll shoot.
I'll drop it in the bottomless tarn. There! Goodbye to the treasure of the Maltrees.
You devil! You've ruined me. I'll have the law on you for this. You're a common thief.
I don't know how you'll prove it, Harold. That was my own Gladstone bag, and I dropped it in the tarn. You don't even know what was inside it.
But here comes the man who can tell us.
Good Lord, it's Wilson, the groom fellow you discharged, Lord Carter.
Well, what are you doing here, Wilson? What's that book you're carrying?
I just done what Mr. Sherlock Holmes told me to, sir. I was following Mr. Devers. When he put down the bag and went off to get his coat before coming out here, I thought there might be something valuable in it. I took out this book, and I filled the bag with a few rocks.
Wilson, No, you won't, Devers. Or you'll end up in the tarn where you belong.
Let me see the book, Wilson.
Here you are, Governor.
Thank you. Hold the lantern a little higher, Watson. That's it. Aha. These faded pages are written in monkish Latin of the 8th century, and the hand is of the same period. Unless all my researches on the datings of documents are valueless, they must be, the original manuscripts of the Venerable Bede himself.
Good Lord, then they're absolutely priceless.
And that means that the Maltrees are saved.
And you, Mr. Devers, will have the privilege of inspecting the interior of an English prison.
Rubbish. What charge could you make?
Common theft, burglary.
The proof would depend on the word of that filthy groom there. And who's going to believe the oath of a servant with a grudge over the word of a South African millionaire?
I think it's high time that this, filthy groom disclosed his true identity.
All right, Mr. Holmes. The gentleman, I'm Inspector Athelney Jones of Scotland Yard.
And a great credit to the force you've been, my dear Jones.
Yes, indeed, you certainly have.
Your impersonation of a country groom was masterly, quite masterly. And now, let's return to the house, shall we? It's nearly 3 in the morning, and I think we've had enough excitement for one night. A very satisfactory case, Watson, don't you think? As we head back for London, I must confess to a certain glow of satisfaction. The fortunes of the Maltrees are restored, the villain foiled and in custody. And
Scotland Yard get the credit. You know that, of course, Holmes.
Well, they deserve it. Athena Jones is a very enterprising fellow. Yes, Watson, an immensely interesting case. You see, Maltree Abbey was, from its name, one of the properties expropriated from the monks by Henry VIII, who created the earldom. Undoubtedly, the abbot had hidden the monastery's most valuable possession, the bead manuscript.
And then I suppose the first earl discovered the hiding place and left the book there as a future security for the Maltree family.
Exactly, leaving the cryptic verse as a clue.
If the Maltrees be in need, seek the venerable bead. Yes, I see it all now. You know, Holmes, to me the whole case was worth it when I saw that girl's face light up as we told her the good news.
I fear that I'm less impressionable, old chap. For me, my retrospective pleasure in this case lies in the fact that an irreplaceable treasure has been saved, and that a monk who died 12 centuries ago will have been responsible for restoring the fortunes of a fine old family. Yes, Watson, I think that in many ways you might refer to this as our most successful case.
Dr. Watson will be back in just a moment to tell you about next week's story. Ladies, you've heard it said that a woman's hair is her crowning glory. And how true this is. That's why you ladies should take the very best care of your hair, especially in shampooing.
I'm glad you brought that point up, Mr. Bell, because many popular shampoos have a tendency to dry the hair.
Well, here's one shampoo that will never dry the hair. Never under any circumstances. And it's Kreml shampoo.
Yes, Kreml shampoo is simply wonderful. It actually glamour-bays each tiny strand of hair so that it fairly radiates natural, dazzling highlights. It leaves the hair simply gleaming with natural, glossy luster. And what's more, your hair stays this way for days.
Kreml shampoo is not a soapless shampoo. It's not a cream shampoo. It's not a drying detergent. It's entirely different.
Kreml shampoo whips up a luxurious, active foam, even in the hardest water. You can use it as often as you wish over a long period of time, and it'll never dry your hair. In fact, Kreml shampoo has a built-in oil base, which actually helps keep the hair from becoming dry or brittle.
Remember, ladies, that divinely beautiful Powers models wash their hair with Kreml shampoo. They claim no other shampoo leaves their hair more shining bright, yet never dries the hair. Why not try it? Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, now, let me see. Next week, I think I shall tell you how Holmes managed to trap a fiendish murderer who had terrorized a pretty little English country village. I call it The Adventure of the Tolling Bell.
Tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, A Case of Identity. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of California Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. The Sherlock Holmes series is produced by Tom McKnight, with original music composed and conducted by Alex Steinert. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo, and inviting you to be with us next week at the same time when Dr. Watson will tell us about the adventure of the tolling bell. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. Well, this was a nice change of pace, more of a treasure hunt than a whodunit. A few nice twists in here. Of course, the one thing I wondered was if there really was such a person as the Venerable Bede. And indeed there was. That was something that was genuine to the story. In fact, he was one of the most respected historians and authors in the Catholic Church. In fact, he was the only Englishman to receive the title a doctor of the church, which came 1,100 years after his death in 1899, which would be around the time of Sherlock Holmes, interestingly enough. Well, we have a couple listener comments. Sherry said, I started listening to your show from the beginning and was a little put out. After all, I've downloaded a lot of these shows myself and listened to them. Why did I need someone else to do it for me? Because I'm discovering new shows to listen to as well as info about the actors and episodes. I don't think I'll ever find a show that I like better than the Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes episodes, but I'll be listening to find out. Well, thanks so much, Sherry. Those are definitely great programs. Then Kay writes, over on iTunes, I discovered Old Time Radio podcast after I purchased my iPod. I've listened to several podcasts over the past 2 years, but Adam's Great Detectives is by far my favorite and the only one I listen to regularly. I like the variety, consistency, and the fact that Adam plays the shows in chronological order. We also have a review of the app on Amazon. Skip says, it's not HD Avatar, but it's certainly great video of classic film detective stories. Anyone who enjoys movie classic detective mysteries from an earlier period in movies will find the selection very good. Image and sound quality better than many other film apps on Android. Better performance than the Play On apps, which I do enjoy. Not for every film fan, but essential if you look forward to the early film classics on PBS. This app was discovered accidentally, and I'm really pleased that I did. Well, thanks so much, Skip, for a recommendation, and it's something we mention every now and again, but the videos definitely, I guess, make an interesting addition to our lineup. Well, that'll do it for now. We'll be back tomorrow with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Before we get started, I have a couple items to get to. I forgot to mention this yesterday, and I intended to mention on the Sherlock Holmes show, but Edward Hardwicke, who played the role of Watson on the 1980s British Sherlock Holmes show, has passed away at the age of 78. Will definitely be missed. Sherlock Holmes, the fans the world over appreciated the way he played Watson in that series with Jeremy Brett. I should also let you know about this week's video theater. As I mentioned on Monday, it's an episode of Martin Caine. Now, there's not a whole lot of advisories, except that Martin Caine was sponsored by a tobacco company, and there are tobacco ads in that program. With most television shows, and a lot of the crime shows were sponsored by tobacco companies, usually syndicated versions were made that were without the tobacco ads, if not for government regulations on occasion, but also for just syndication purposes. With Martin Caine, this was pretty much impossible. The ads are embedded into the storyline. And it was part of what happened with live television. Is if you were going to do a television show and you had a commercial sponsor and you were doing it via kinescope, usually they would either cut away to the spokesman or they would insert the ads. And they weren't the only show to do it. It also happened on Burns and Allen, the sitcom. But with that said, I hope you enjoy the case. It's the District Attorney Killer. All right, well, before we get into today's episode, I would like to let you know, if you would like to advertise your business on the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio, just be sure to email me your information, box13@greatdetectives.net. It's box13@greatdetectives.net. Well, we're going to get into today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, the Hatchet House Theft Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as
Johnny Dollar.
Oh, yes. This is Inspector Sailor, Scotland Yard.
Oh, yes, Inspector. Thanks for calling back. I understand you've been assigned to Scott Jewel theft investigation?
Yes. Inspector Finley's been taken ill. I was given the case this morning. As a matter of fact, I just received the file with your request to telephone.
Well, that puts us about abreast then, Inspector. I got in from the States last night. I'd like to get together with you so we could compare notes.
Yes, splendid. Could you come to my office?
At your convenience.
Well, then, why don't you come right over? But first, Mr. Dollar, tell me, Did the insurance company send you to London in the belief that the yard is no longer competent?
What?
We've been reminded, you know, that our reputation has fallen off badly since the Stone of Scorn was stolen. But perhaps you and I shall have better luck, huh?
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dolan. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office Financial Surety Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Hatchet House theft matter. Expense account item 1, $432.50, airfare and incidentals between Hartford and London, England. I arrived in the evening and learned by phone that the original inspector assigned to the case had been replaced. The next morning I was in contact with his replacement, and at 10:30 I was directed to his office.
Here we are, sir. Inspector Sailors?
Yes?
Mr. Dollar, sir.
Oh, yes. Come in, Mr. Dollar.
Thanks very much.
Right, you are, sir.
Pleasure, Mr. Dollar.
How do you do, Inspector?
Sit down. Speaking to an acquaintance of yours a few moments ago. Inspector Finch?
Oh, yes. Yes, I worked on a case with him over here last year. How is he?
Oh, quite well, thank you. He complimented you quite highly, sir.
Well, that's very nice of him. But as I remember it, I think I was more of a burden than a help to him.
Well, I doubt that. Well, I suppose we should face the situation at hand.
Yeah. I brought an accurate description of all the jewelry insured by Mrs. Scott.
Ah, splendid.
But the cable that reported the theft wasn't quite clear as to which pieces were missing.
Well, Inspector Finley's information on that score is quite accurate, I think. Yeah, here we are.
Oh, thank you.
And he's covered the methods used in the commission of the crime quite thoroughly, I think. I'm going to spend the afternoon crime index. I should probably be able to link the method with a few of our known criminals.
Gentleman's investigation, huh?
I suppose so. Rather tedious, but quite often successful.
I'd like to see Mrs. Scott myself, if it's all right with you.
Of course. I shall arrange a car and a driver for you. Will early afternoon be suitable?
Well, thanks, but there's no reason to go to that bother, is there? Isn't she staying here in London?
No, she left a place near Seven Oaks in Surrey, about 20 miles south of here. Quite an historic establishment, I'm told. It's called Hatchet House.
Before I left London that afternoon, Inspector Sailors and I pulled the few facts we had. I was able to tell him that Mrs. Marcella Scott, reputedly a wealthy Texas widow, was actually slightly on her uppers as far as ready cash went. She had sold some jewelry the previous year for considerably less than its insured value. He gave me the news that Mrs. Scott frequently had been seen in the company of another American tourist named Norman King. And together, we figured the loss at slightly over $100,000. Hatchet House was a medium-sized pile of ivy-draped masonry just on the northern fringe of Seven Oaks. In addition to history, it boasted some seclusion, being set back from the road in the middle of a walled garden. Mrs. Scott was in the village, but was expected back momentarily, and would I care to come in and wait?
The library is quite comfortable if you'd care to go in there.
In a minute, thanks. Your name is Garrett?
Yes, sir.
You've been employed here during Mrs. Scott's whole stay?
Oh, yes, sir. She bought my services from the other side. I'm not without recommendations in Seven Oaks, sir.
And you must know pretty well who's been in the house, at parties and so on.
I'd say so, sir. But they've all been genuine people. Class, you know. I wouldn't say that any of them would stoop to thievery.
How many other servants are there?
2 that live in. There's Millie Hankey, she's a maid. There's old Mr. Minns, he's the gardener. He's got a cottage out back.
Mrs. Scott was entertaining night before last when the jewelry was stolen. Had she hired any extra servants?
No, sir.
Oh, thanks, Garrett.
Oh, there's Millie. Millie, come here, do. Here's an American gentleman to see you.
How do you do, sir?
You're Miss Hankey?
Yes, sir.
He's come all the way from the other side, Millie, about Mrs. Scott's jewels being stolen.
It's a scandal, that's what it is. But I don't suppose you'd say it's the only one.
Watch your tongue, Millie.
Watching it.
I'll be in the pantry, sir, if I can be of any more service to you.
Thanks, Garrett. I will want the names of the people who were here the other night.
Right, sir. I'll write them on a paper.
He's got a nerve telling me to watch my tongue. A scandal's a scandal, genuine people or not, and he knows it.
Just what did you mean, Millie?
I suppose the servant's paid to keep her eyes open and her mouth closed. But I haven't been a servant long. I'm only a village girl from Penrith, but I know right from wrong.
You don't approve of some of the things.
No, I don't. And I'm going to leave when I get married. Maybe next month.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. He's a good man.
I'm sure of that.
So big and strong. Lots of fun. We'll have an inn of our own someday, and I won't have to be a servant
I
anymore.
wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you, sir.
I want you to know, Millie, that anything you say to me will be kept in strict confidence.
Yes, sir. You look like the honest kind.
Now, what things especially didn't you approve of? Something that's caught your eye could be important.
I don't know, but one thing. Being a widow at her age, it's indecent, that's what. And I've seen them making jokes in front of the photo of her poor dead husband. He was older, you know.
Yes, I knew that.
I can't say she hastened his end, but I can't say she's sorry he's buried and gone either.
Who made jokes in front of his photograph?
Mr. King.
Norman King. He was here the night of the theft, wasn't he?
The night of the theft. He's been here more than he's elsewhere. He's a filthy leech, if you ask me. I'm only a country girl, but there's a look in his eyes I didn't mistake. Not for a moment. He's slimy.
I wish you'd think about the party night before last, Millie. You were here on the ground floor through most of it, weren't you?
Yes, sir, the whole drunken time.
I wish you'd try and remember if anybody went upstairs and stayed long enough to have gone into Mrs. Scott's room and forced open the drawer and stolen the jewelry.
I'll try, sir.
Don't mistake me. We aren't sure that's what happened. It could just as well have been an outsider who knew a party was going on and had a way of entry, or even somebody passing by who found the rear door unlocked.
I'll try, sir.
Thanks, Millie. I won't keep you from your work any longer. I'll just wait in the library for Mrs. Scott. I waited an hour until the butler, Garrett, notified me that Marcella Scott had phoned. She had met some friends in the village, had driven to London with them, and wouldn't return until the next morning. I could find her any time after 9 that night at Claridge's Hotel. I spent another 20 minutes with the servants and left for London and Inspector Saylor's office.
Oh, well, I expected you to return before this, Mr. Dolan.
I hope I didn't keep the car and driver too long.
No, not at all. Especially if the time was well spent.
Most of it was wasted. While I waited for Mrs. Scott in Hatchet House, she was on her way to London.
Huh? She's here now?
Claridge's. She came in with friends.
Well, doesn't seem to be upset over her loss, does she?
Nor the loss of her husband either, I take it.
Oh?
I'm interested in the association between her and this Norman King.
I see. Then you did have a talk with Miss Mildred Hankey, the maid, hmm?
Yes, I did. Why? Did you?
No. Inspector Finlay did.
What did he say about it?
Well, she suffered from an insane hate or jealousy because of this Mr. King.
I didn't see it quite that way.
That she berated the friendship shared by Mrs. Scott and him. This is what he jotted down. Investigate possibility of collusion between Hankey girl and King.
Well, as I said, I didn't see it that way, but maybe he hit something.
Perhaps.
King's from New York. I'm going to make a phone call, see what I can learn about his background. In the meantime, I hope to meet him. At least I think he's here with Mrs. Scott.
You're going to see her, then?
Her message was that I could any time after 9. I plan to be available about 2 minutes after.
I shall be interested to hear.
Did you get anything from your files?
Nothing. Dreadfully and absolutely nothing.
At 5 minutes before 9, I arrived at Mrs. Scott's hotel. On the stroke of 9, I phoned her suite, and at 3 minutes after, I met her. A striking honey blonde with tanned skin and an athletic figure that dressed her clothes nicely.
I'm sorry I missed you in the country, Mr. Dolan.
All right, I should have phoned.
I suppose you're here to save what money you can for the insurance company in case my things aren't recovered.
Insurance companies don't operate that way, Mrs. Scott. They can afford not to.
Please sit down.
Thank you.
It's the expected thing, I guess. but I suspect one of the servants had something to do with it.
Do you have any special reason for that suspicion?
Oh, they're strange people. I don't know anything about them. I've had them 2 months, and I've never been comfortable with them around me.
Anything else?
Well, the more I thought of it, the more it seems to make sense. The house was full of people to be suspected. One of them could have taken advantage of that.
The men at Scotland Yard say that it took between 15 and 20 minutes to force that drawer open the way it was done. Did you miss either of your servants for that length of time?
Not that I remember. It got a little confused by 11 or so.
Do you suspect anybody else? Any of your guests?
Oh, good Lord, no. Most of them have a lot more than I do.
Did you know Norman King in the States, or did you meet him here?
Are you telling me you suspect Norman?
I asked when you met him.
Why?
I wondered if you knew him well enough to know he has a record as a forger.
I don't believe it.
Checks. He signed the name of another widow. A copy of the record is being mailed to me.
I don't care. Doesn't make any difference. Norman didn't steal my jewelry. He wouldn't do that to me.
I wonder how many times the other widow said that.
You don't understand me. Norman and I are the same kind of people. You don't think I married a 70-year-old Texan for love, do you? Well, Norman's made up his mind what he wants out of life, too. He's talked about it. He doesn't care how he gets it, but he wouldn't take it from me.
Well, I wanted to meet you, Mr. Scott, and I have. Norman King checked into the Dorchester yesterday. He checked out today, and now Scotland Yard can't find him. If you hear from him, maybe you'd better let us know. Johnny Dollar.
Inspector Sailor.
Oh, hello. I'm sorry I took so long to answer. I just got up to my room.
Yes, well, I spoke to the clerk at the desk. He thought you might be going up now to ring. You saw Mrs. Scott?
Yes, I didn't learn much, but I don't think she's mixed up in it.
No. Well, perhaps I have some news for you.
What's that?
I just received a report of a killing in Limehouse. The constable described a piece of jewelry found at the scene, and it corresponds quite closely to the description of Mrs. Scott's emerald brooch.
Oh? Who was killed?
No identification yet. A man. I'm driving over. I wondered if you'd like me to pick you up.
Yes, I would. I'll be waiting in front of my hotel.
We will return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. What is the secret of Dr. Walter? Sorry, we don't have the answer, but we know where it can be found. Tomorrow night over most of these same CBS stations, with a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense. The unique theater of thrills called Suspense looks into the eerie matter of Dr. Walter's private life. Another thrilling CBS suspense drama tomorrow night. And now with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
By the time we got to the dismal Coldwater flat near the Thames, the inevitable crowd had gathered in the street. The body was one flight up in a grubby room that showed plenty of signs that a struggle had taken place. The man obviously had been killed by a blow on the back of the head. He'd been identified by the landlady as George Kenzie, the renter of the room.
It was a bootblack who discovered the body. Said this George Kenzie owed him some money and wouldn't pay. He came up here tonight and found him dead. I found the brooch myself just under the chair there, sir.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Constable.
Right, sir. I'll be outside. Here now, you people that don't belong here, don't crowd the corridor. Move along now. Come along, move along.
Is there any doubt in your mind, Mr. Dollar, that this is Mrs. Scott's brooch?
Not at all. Look, the jeweler's mark on the back.
Well, then, we've made some progress. I hardly think we'll be so fortunate as to find the 4 remaining pieces here.
No. Offhand, it looks like there was trouble over dividing the loot, and the winner took the rest, don't you think?
Quite possibly. Norman King?
I'd feel better if he was found.
Yeah, so would I. Matter of fact, I wish you'd keep your American criminals in America. There's quite enough to keep us busy without them.
Oh,
hello.
I haven't done nothing. I've come to Mr. Kinsey's ditches me out on free will, and I don't need no help from nobody.
Not off, you don't. Miss Glory Stokes, Inspector. She said she'd come to pay a visit to Mr. Kenzie, but she made off the other way when she heard the news.
Well, come in, Miss Stokes.
I will not. Not with him lying there like that.
Very well. Constable, ask Miss Stokes if she'll please accompany you to the yard. Mr. Dolan and I will see her there.
I suppose it's understood that when you're with Scotland Yard, you do as Scotland Yard does. We didn't search the place, but we learned it was empty of any more jewelry after a crew of technical men collected every possible bit of physical evidence in the room and started it towards the yard's various laboratories. The results of their meticulous tests, comparisons, and examination fell into place later. We asked a few questions there without getting anything, and then went back to the inspector's office, where Glory Stokes waited for us.
I trust we haven't kept you waiting too long. This is Mr. Dollar, American investigator.
How do you do?
What would he be investigating that would concern me?
We'll explain the whole thing to you, Miss Stokes.
It ain't Miss Stokes. Something tells me I'm going to wish it was.
You're married?
I am. That's why I was going to George Kinsey. I haven't seen me Abbey for 3 days. And I was going to ask George if he knew where the rotter was.
What's your husband's name?
Leonard Stokes.
You haven't seen him in 3 days.
That's right.
Couldn't he give you any idea where he was going?
No, why should he? I don't care where he goes, and he knows it.
But you said you were looking for him.
I was. If he's going to desert his poor wife, she's got a right to know, hasn't she?
Yes, I suppose she has.
I take it he spent quite a lot of time with this George Kinsey.
Yeah, too much if you ask me. George was no good. He was a thief. I knew he'd end up dead like this. And if I told Leonard once, I told him 100 that he'd get into trouble if he comes with him. He is in trouble. Ain't he in trouble?
We aren't sure yet, Mrs. Stokes.
What kind of trouble?
Some jewelry was stolen from a woman in Seven Oaks.
Jewels,
One of the pieces was found in George Kenzie's room. There's still almost $100,000 worth missing.
More than 30,000 pounds, Mrs. Stokes.
30,000? George did that?
It looks like it.
There's a possibility that your husband was involved also.
Leonard? Don't make me laugh. He wouldn't have the brains.
The next morning, armed with pictures of both Stokes and the dead man, Inspector Sailors and I drove back to Seven Oaks. He dropped me at Hatchet House and went on to cover the village himself. Mrs. Scott received me in the library.
Good morning, Mr. Dolan.
Mrs. Scott, you must have left London early this morning.
Yes, I did. Have you made any progress?
Some, yes. Have you heard anything?
I was very unhappy after you left last night.
Why? Did you suddenly get lonesome for your jewels?
I think you know why. I made a confession to you. I let you see what I really am. I never do that.
It's all in confidence. Forget it.
I've been trying to. I got a radiogram from Norman King. It arrived here late yesterday afternoon.
Did you notify Scotland Yard?
No. I know you asked me to, but I didn't think it was necessary. He's on his way back to New York. He wouldn't do that with stolen jewelry, would he?
It would be stupid, but I'll want the name of the ship.
I'll give it to you. He inferred that he knew his record would come to light because of the theft and that he'd feel better leaving England before he was asked to leave. He's a stupid, irresponsible dunce.
Yeah. I have some photographs I want you to look at. Here, I'll spread them out on the table.
Who are they?
Pictures of this man may not be quite lifelike because he was dead when they were taken.
Who is he?
His name is George Kinsey. He was found beaten to death last night. Your emerald brooch was on the floor near him, so we're assuming he was killed because of your jewelry. You ever seen this man around here?
No, not that I remember.
I want you to remember one way or the other. It's possible that this man just received the stolen property from someone else, but if we can find somebody in the house or in the village who recognizes him, then we'll feel sure that he actually was the thief, or one of them anyway.
I'm trying to be sure.
What about the other one?
I don't think I've seen either of them.
And if you'll leave the room, I'd like to talk to your servants.
You're going out of your way to be nasty. You thoroughly despise me, don't you?
No. What I dislike is the fact that the physical part of you wasn't matched up with some mental apparatus that deserved it. You asked me a personal question, Mrs. Scott. want you to look at the photographs and think. It's important that we find out if you have ever seen either of these men in Seven Oaks.
Which one is deceased, sir?
This one.
How large was he?
Little under 6 feet. Miss Hankey?
I don't like looking at them, sir. I don't think I've seen either one of them, though.
There's something about this one, sir.
George Kenzie?
Was he plump?
No, I don't think you'd say plump. He was heavy, stocky.
There's something about him, sir. Can't put my finger quite on it, but there's something.
Could he have made deliveries here?
Who brought the luggage, Millie?
Oh, I don't think it was him. Or this one either. They had their own lorry with a sign on it. Have you forgot?
I'm sure of it, sir. There's something about this one, but I can't remember what.
Well, thanks very much, both of you. If you do remember something, please notify Scotland Yard. In the village, Inspector Sailors had found few people who thought they recognized George Kenzie and 2 who were positive. None of them had recognized Leonard Stokes. So by the time we had left Seven Oaks, we were fairly sure that Kenzie had been actively involved, but since he was dead, being sure didn't mean any progress. Nothing further developed that day, although in London a stream of suspects was questioned. The next morning, the situation hadn't changed, but I began to feel that in the face of the movement of Scotland Yard, a criminal would have to have more than brains and more than luck to escape. At 2 that afternoon, a report was phoned in that a man answering the description of Leonard Stokes had been seen boarding a train in Waterloo Station and followed to his compartment. Another call delayed the train so that Inspector Sailors and I were able to get aboard.
Here we are. If you don't mind, Mr. Dolan.
It's your island, Inspector.
Yes, thank you. Scotland Yard.
What?
Are you Leonard Stokes?
Am I who? No, I'm not.
Who are you then, sir?
Well, I don't see how you have a right to go...
You must have identification. Let me see it, please.
All right. I'm Leonard Stokes. Who's he?
An American, Mr. Dollar, sent here to recover Mrs. Scott's stolen property.
You know where it is, Stokes?
Answer him.
It's all right. All right. I know when I'm beat. Yes, I know where it is. But I didn't kill George.
How did you know he was dead, Mr. Stokes?
Well, I tried to telephone him. That's how I found out.
He was killed because of the jewelry, wasn't he, Stokes?
I don't know. But I know why he was killed.
When was the last time you saw him, Mr. Stokes?
Tuesday night.
You went to Seven Oaks?
I went to Seven Oaks, yes. Look, I'm willing to cooperate, Inspector. I'll tell you my part of it.
Well, that will make it a great deal less difficult for all of us.
Yes, sir. Well, he asked me to go to Seven Oaks with him. I didn't know what he was up to. I thought we was just going for a little drive.
Out of 5 pieces missing, Stokes, we found 1 in Kenzie's room. Now, if you know where the rest of them are, you must have known what he was up to.
If I had, I wouldn't have gone. That's the truth. Before I knew it, he stopped off at this Hatchet house and told me to wait in the motor.
Well, he must have explained why he stopped.
Well, he said he had a friend to see, a gardener.
Gardener at Hatchet House?
That's what he told me. He came back in a while and then we drove off.
And you still didn't know what was happening?
No.
When did you?
When it was too late. On the road back to London, he told me. He told me whether I knew it or not, I'd just stolen some jewels. Well, I thought he was joking. Then he showed them to me and he says, who's going to believe you, Len boy, when you say you didn't know nothing about it? Oh, what could I do?
What did you do?
I'll go back to London.
Why was there only 1 piece of jewelry in Kenzie's room?
Well, that's all he took. Said he wanted to give it to a chum.
And you took care of the rest of it?
Well, I was afraid to do anything else, sir. He kept telling me I was complicated in it.
Stokes' innocence, as far as the robbery was concerned, became a little embarrassing even to him by the time we got him off the train and back to Scotland Yard. But his denial of any knowledge of Kenzie's murder was borne out, A, by an alibi that proved him innocent, and B, the result of one of the laboratory tests mentioned earlier. Traces of lip rouge found on the dead man's clothing pointed the way to the murderer.
Mrs. Scott is resting in her room and left orders not to be disturbed.
We won't disturb her, Garrett. Is Miss Hankey here?
She's in the pantry, sir.
Could you show us?
This way, please.
Thank you, Garrett.
Oh, Mr. Dollar.
This is Inspector Sailors from Scotland Yard, Miss Hankey.
Miss Hanky.
How do you do? You've come after me, haven't you?
Yes, I think we have.
I don't mind. I don't care about anything now.
You did recognize the photographs of George Kenzie, didn't you?
Recognize him? Yes, I suppose so. I remembered. I remembered the man I fell in love with. I told you I was going to marry, didn't I, Mr. Dollar?
You met him in Seven Oaks?
Yes. He told me he lived in London. And I felt like a child. I'd never gotten to know anyone who lived in London. When you're born in Penrith, you never do. He was so nice. He could talk so I could listen all night.
Did he question you concerning Mrs. Scott?
He took me to London. And he told me he wanted to marry me. And I believed him.
Millie, we're sorry.
I wanted a husband the same as every girl. But he was lying. He knew I was a servant. And he found out about things.
Then, inadvertently, you told him about the entertainment Tuesday night.
The party? He said he was going to come. I left the rear door unlocked because I was going to give him some refreshments. I thought he hadn't come. But he had. He lied to me. That's why I killed him.
You went to London last night?
Yes. He told me to leave London. He told me to go back to Penrith. Then I knew that he'd lied to me and that he'd stolen the jewelry. He called me a stupid country girl. And that's when I hit him. I hit him and hit him. Because it was true. That's all I am. A servant. And I'll never be anything else.
Expense account item 2, miscellaneous, $317.75. Item 3, same as item 1, transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $1,182.75. Remarks? The jewelry was recovered, but in spite of its value, that didn't seem too important. The importance, as I saw it, lay in the complete reversal of values. Mildred Hankey, who only wanted goodness, had found badness. And Marcella Scott? Marcella Scott left for Capri the following day. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dodd with music by Eddie Dunstetter. Edmund O'Brien can soon be seen in the Paramount Pictures production Warpath. Featured in tonight's cast were John McIntyre, Ben Wright, Tudor Owen, Jeanette Nolan, and Virginia Gregg. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dan Cubberly inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Tonight's the last Bing Crosby show of the season on CBS. What's more, Ken Murray, his pretty blonde songbird, Laurie Anders, and folk singer Burl Ives are all on hand to help the groaner ring down the curtain. Stay tuned for the Bing Crosby Show next on most of these same CBS stations. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, I think that Johnny got in a cutting remark that may have been one of the most notable put-downs I've heard in listening to old-time radio. Not said by Pat Novak, I should add. And this kind of had the same sort of downbeat feeling as the Lillis Bond matter a few weeks ago, with the idea of somebody getting a raw deal, despite doing the right thing. The other thing that really stands out is the ability of Johnny Dollar to create such a memorable and believable British situation. You see that on CBS as well with the another show they did, Pursuit, which was set entirely in Great Britain. They had the benefit of a combination of people who were very skilled with doing dialect, as well as a lot of British citizens living in Hollywood. All right, well, we turn to listener comments and feedback. I love to listen to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio podcast. I've been listening for a few years now, and I started with Dragnet. I'm glad that Adam decided to do the other detective shows also. It's a bright spot in my day. Well, thanks so much for that comment on Podcast Alley, and I encourage everybody, particularly as we got a new month, be sure to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley. Become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives, and send your comments in to box 13 at greatdetectives.net. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.